It's 7
the
o'clock,
deal.
right?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Or 6. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk or acting clerk will call the roll.
I'm calling the roll. No, I'm reading the call.
Oh, reading the call.
Dear Supervisor, please be advised that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors will meet at 7 p.m. on June 21st, 2021 in the county boardroom. All county board members' claims are due to the county clerk's office by noon on June 4th, 2021, so they can be prepared for audit committee. Sincerely, Paul L. Severson. We did amend that to 6 p.m. for the training this evening.
Roll call.
And yep, here it is. Rick Nimitz. Doug Winters.
Here.
Sally Miller.
Here.
Richard Seisha.
Here.
Joe Feltus.
Here.
George Brandt. Beth Killian.
Here.
Randy Tullifson.
Here.
Michelle Haynes.
Here.
John Austin.
Here.
Chuck Wallach.
Present.
Tim Ziegler. Dan Schreiner.
Here.
Kellen Nelson.
Here.
Jeannie Nutter.
Here.
Kurt Skoyen.
Here.
Ron Johnson.
Here.
16-1. 16 present.
Certify the open meeting law requirements been met with proper posting and notification. We have a 11-item agenda looking for approval. George?
Mr. Chair. If it please the board, I'd like to move up the announcements, elections appointments item, the appointment of town board representative to Environment Land Use Committee from number 7 to just following the appearances, if that would be okay?
Fine with me. Any problems with anybody? Not? Yes.
And Mr. Chair, since we have a representative from the Samuels Group Venture Update, do we want to move that up before our training? So he doesn't have to sit through the training?
That's up to corp counsel.
Well, it's up to the board, however they want to
You,
structure their meeting.
board want to do that?
It
So you don't
depends how
have to-
long the training's scheduled for. I guess.
Hour.
You have a full hour of training?
Maybe not quite that much, but we close.
We should probably
Yeah.
let him wait.
Let him wait?
Yeah, I don't want to miss the training.
It will be, yes.
Yeah.
I don't, I mean,
Is your update lengthy?
15 minutes, I can have it done.
Okay, up to the board. All those in favor of letting Samuels Group move in first?
And then the move of the other one.
What was that? Do you want to have Samuels Group go ahead and speak first, or have them wait it? Sounds like it's approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Okay. Carried. Minutes. Rule of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the previous minutes.
I'll second.
Motion made, seconded. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. We'll go ahead with item A on appearances. County Board Committee,
Nope, B.
B, item B, Samuels Group, Venture Group update.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for moving me up in the agenda. I'll do my best to keep it under my time limit. So you have some colored pictures in front of you. That's one of the main things I want to share with you today, but we won't go there first, but I'm sure you've all looked at them. I do want to give you a brief update on the progress of the project. So we have bid out bid pack 1 for the project, which was the footings and foundations package and the earthwork utility scope of work. We had a bid date on June 10th. We did have 3 bidders in each category. The low bidders the low bidder for the concrete was R.J. Jarowski. We took that before property committee last week. They did give us authorization to award to R.J. Jarowski for the concrete. The other two bidders were Hanson Masonry out of Owen and Fowler and Hammer out of La Crosse. Jarowski's bid was $519,450. Hanson was $633,949, and Fowler Hammer was at $762. So R.J. Jarowski will be the one doing the footings and foundations portion of the project. Then we did have the excavating portion of it, where they could either bid just the excavating, or if they could do a combined bid of excavating and utilities. So we had two combined bids. One was from Hague Contractors. They were at $986,530. Post D was at $719,268. We did have one individual bid for just the utilities, and that was at $199,936. So we did a qualification on, again, Post D. We did the same thing with Jarowski. Qualification, make sure that the scope was all covered. They were. So the property committee had given us authorization to proceed with award of contract to Post D for the $719,268. So what's happening right now is we're working with the ODIP insurance process to get them all signed up and in line with the ODIP insurance component, and then get the contracts finalized and signed back with the correct paperwork. That should be done here in the next day or two, and you should start seeing some equipment roll onto the site. Bid Pack 2, we're scheduled to have those documents ready sometime around the first part of July. We may want to take an additional week there just to go over and dot the i's and cross the t's. We'll give a 3-week bid period for bid pack number 2, which that's the balance of the project. So there's going to be multiple bid packs on that, much larger bid packages than what we have for this first phase. And we're anticipating having that bid date sometime late in July, and then we will take them to property again, and then do this award process as well. So I did let the property committee know that as you stand right now, you're about $200,000 under budget with between the demo and this first bid package. So that's good news. But I also caution them that bid pack 2, with some of the material prices that we've seen, I don't know that we're going to be under budget when we're done. But we do have a strategy to be able to deal with those bid categories as they come in. Steel has continued to increase, and what you'll see is bid packages will come in. If they are over budget, we'll decide if we want to change scope or if we want to wait and rebid portions of those projects at a later date when material prices may come down. So we've got a strategy to navigate through that. So just wanted to let you know that we're keeping our finger on the pulse of what's happening there in the market, and so far things are moving along in a positive manner. So.
I was told today that lumber prices are coming back.
They are. I heard the same thing.
Okay.
I don't know that they'll ever come back to how low they were.
Lumber
but-
prices are coming back down.
Lumber prices really don't have that much of an impact on your project, because it is, bricks and mortar and steel, that sort of thing. But the steel market has really taken quite an increase too. So we've done our best to minimize the amount of steel that there is in the structure. Like I shared with you, we're looking at precast and CMU for a majority of your building to be able to hamper some of that steel. But you still have detention frames, and there's still steel in your building. Don't get me wrong. It's not steel free. So there still is an index that's impacting that. Any questions on that before I take you to the pretty pictures? No? Okay. So we put a packet together here. We figured we'd give it to you in paper form rather than do it on the screen so that you could actually see the imagery. So Venture's done a great job here of being able to, what I think, represent what the county of Trempealeau how it would fit in the county of Trempealeau. And I just wanted to get this in front of you, get some feedback from you before we finalize these documents. So the drawing you have before you is what it will look like as you come into the new front entrance. So as you walk in the front door, you're going to see that there is this vestibule, that counter there where those people are, that will be the security desk. So it'll be a bigger space so that you don't have people choked down as you come in through the security side. As you look up above there, the glass that's up there that has that imagery up there, it's a frosting or a covering that goes over that glass. That's actually will be the county boardroom up on that second floor. So we've given it the name, the Decora Room. I don't know how we got that name, but it is the county boardroom. It's going to be a shared space that's in there. What they've done with this entrance is on the left-hand side where you see the gentleman that's standing there. I've heard that gentleman looks like Rick. They thought it was Rick, and it's
It
not.
does.
So I thought maybe they thought they were pulling a statue of Rick, but it's not Rick.
No, it's not.
What they want to do on the left side of that vestibule is the imagery that's down your corridors that talks about the history of Trempealeau County. They're looking to represent that on the left side of the wall. So it would be a historic feature to be able to represent what you have here in the building, to carry some of that old into the new. On the other side, they've got some limestone that obviously ties in some of the materials from the local area that's here. If you want to switch to this next page, you're standing in the same location, but you're looking back out the front door. Okay, so just imagine that you're still in the vestibule and you've just turned around and you're looking south now before you were looking north as you walked in there. So you'll see those doors that are there. It's open and glass. There's security in function in that, so that the individual that is manning that station, if they do see danger that's coming in, they're able to lock those doors down. It's something that gives a visual perspective of that entire campus, but you'll see that the natural light is in there. Off to the left-hand side there, through that window there, is the courtyard, which is now your parking lot that's in here. It will become an inner courtyard that's there, and that's what you see on the left-hand side of the picture. Next page, this is as you continue down the vestibule. This is on the north end of that atrium, and this will be the stairs that take you up to the county boardroom. If you look through the windows there, you can see Quick Trip. So that's looking across Dewey Street to Quick Trip. It's the north end of that atrium. We were going to call that the Quick Trip entrance, but it's not going to be an entrance because you're only going to have one. But that's where you're going to be able to see. It's on the north side of that atrium. Next page is as you come up those stairs. So envision that you're walking up those stairs from that atrium, and you're coming up to what is this common waiting area. This waiting area is just outside of the county boardroom. So as you're looking at this picture where the gentleman with the blue suit is there, he's just outside of the county boardroom, would be on your left-hand side. This big open space here is the waiting room for all of the courts functions. So as you walk in, there'll be court seating there. There's a couple of monitors that are on the wall there. Those are going to be rolling the court schedule. So individuals that come in, they'll see where their hearing is, where it's scheduled, the timing that's there. On the right-hand side would be the clerk of court space as you look at the picture. This image is in the same spot. You look at the gentleman in the blue suit. He's in the same position from the other one. You're looking back. You can see the monitors that are over there, the imagery. Behind that glass over there is the clerk of court's entrance for that main waiting room. Next page, they have it called the second floor conference room. It's actually the county board room, multi-purpose room. We call it the decor room. So as you walk in, you get a feel for what this board room would look like. The configuration of the furniture will be flexible. It will not be fixed. There will be data ports and power ports in the floor so that you can adjust the tables in that configuration. So this gives you kind of a feel of what that county board room or multi-purpose room will be used for. It will be used for jury assembly. It will be used for other large meeting rooms. The next page is just a different view of that same room, and it gives you a feeling of what that looks like. Next page, now you're outside of that county boardroom and you're looking down the court's hallway where it says main courts corridor. So this would be looking west. So you came into that waiting room by clerk of courts and now you're looking west down the corridor. You can see that the numbers are there represent the number of the courtroom. And then this gives you a feel for the spatial size of that corridor that goes down in front of the courts. Next page, you're just walking a little bit further down the corridor. So you've walked a little bit further. Now you're close to courtroom number 2. Next page, you're outside of courtroom number 2. You'll see that there'll be an in session. You'll see the gentleman on the right-hand side of the photo there. He's looking at that monitor. All those monitors will represent the same imagery of this court schedule that's there, that was in that clerk of court's waiting room. So they'll be able to see when court is scheduled for their hearing. Next page, now you're in the courtroom. Gives you a feel for what the courtroom will look like with obviously the bench at the front. The jury box is off to the right there. Next page will give you a different angle of the courtroom.
You have a visiting judge?
What's that?
You have a visiting judge in the picture?
Yeah. They've got a visiting judge. They've got opportunities there for a visiting judge. The next page is the jail visitors lobby. So as you come in, there will be off of the main parking lot, there will be a spot where individuals can come in just into the visitors portion of the jail. So you're walking into this main vestibule, there'll be a counter there, and they can deal with their interaction with the jail staff. And the next page is just looking back at that same, the lady there has just walked through that door, and now they're into the waiting room there of the main lobby of the jail. So, kind of get a feel for the finishes that are in there. You're looking at different paints. You're not looking at anything that is real high-end. I think they've done a good job of finding things that are cost-effective. Venture wanted to have that in front of you, the board, to get some feedback of whether they have hit or represented what would be a good fit for Trempealeau, or if there's some things you want to have tweaked or adjusted before we put it out to bid. Any thoughts, feedback?
Mr. Chair, I got one question
Yeah.
to ask. On your floors, is that going to be epoxy Traza?
We do have terrazzo in the main corridors, and then when you get in...
Epoxy Traza or
Yeah.
regular Traza?
Well, we have there's two options there. It depends on the price point. We'd like to see regular, but it gets to be cost-effective or more cost-prohibitive. Epoxy is another option as well. We've done the same thing with some tile and some options. So we're looking at having that, something that's a better wear than in the main corridors.
Yeah.
So we're adding another courtroom than what we currently have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And is that going to be set up basically the same as the other two courtrooms, so they'll all look basically like that one, or
No,
one's be smaller?
there's two courtrooms that are juried, and then there's a smaller courtroom for a family court commissioner
it'll be a
that
hearing
will...
room.
It'll be a hearing room.
Okay.
Correct.
And then here on that last one, it shows the 1, 2, 3. Is that the secure area where prisoners would be transported to the courtrooms for hearings? 'Cause I don't
Yes.
see- Okay.
Yep,
So this is,
correct.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
That it? No more questions? Thanks, Kurt.
Feedback? Are you good with finishes, so I can tell them keep moving on? All right, sounds good. Oh, I didn't get 12 minutes done.
Thanks.
So,
Thanks, Kurt.
thanks for letting me jump in front of you on your training.
All right.
Have a good week.
Back to item 5A. County Board and Committee Member Training. Put on by Rick Niemeyer and Krista Weisenberg.
And Stacy.
And Paul, it says.
It does. I didn't know until after I made this.
Paul gets
that-
here.
I didn't know until after I made this thing up that Paul wasn't going to be here for right now, so
Okay.
we're just waiting for the PowerPoint to get up on the screen up there. Would someone mind grabbing the back light or the front lights to switch? Thank you. There we go. All right, as we're getting that set up, just a little introduction. This is a training that we normally do for county board members. It traditionally has been for county board members after each election, so that the new incoming board members have a little bit of a, kind of an orientation, so to speak, about things and how they operate. It was suggested, and it was a great idea, to include committee members, because there are committee members who are not board members, and so the invitation was extended to them as well. And so this is just going to be an overview. I'll tell you right now, too, that these are just some general high points, particularly in the areas that I get to in the legal stuff. With every legal thing, there's 12 exceptions. I'm not going to go over all 12 exceptions tonight. We'll just go over the main points, and if anybody has any questions, we can go over that afterwards, too. So, let's see how this works. No, it's not hooked up to my computer. It's, I have my own version here, but it's, there's an on and off button. Hopefully Daryl's close by. Should I assume it's just the arrow buttons back and forth?
Yeah, this right and left is what it should.
Okay, yeah.
I don't see no light or anything coming out of
Is
it.
there a power or something that I?
There's no power, but it's possible.
Oh, it's glowing.
Just go pop that out.
Okay. Try it.
Maybe my head's blocking.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. This was just a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be doing. Wanted to welcome everybody. I was going to introduce everybody, and I'll do that in a moment. Most of you know who I am, but for committee members that maybe don't, I'm Rick Niemeyer, Corp Counsel. Stacey, I'll let you go ahead.
I'm Stacy Silla. I'm Chief Deputy County Clerk. Paul will be here after a while, and then he can do his part too.
And I'm Krista Weisenberger. I'm the Human Resources Director. I'm Krista Weisenberger. I'm the Human Resources Director.
So, like I said, we're just going to do some overview of a couple of things. Again, it's the main points. We're not going to get into great detail on some things, but feel free to ask questions as we go along. So first up is Stacy.
The official directory is that little booklet that we print every year. All that information is also available on our website. We used to print hundreds and hundreds of them, and we're trying to narrow it down so we can get it on our website. We usually don't do it till June, and we thought they would be here for today's meeting, but they didn't get here in time. We wait until after May's elections usually so we can update all city, county officials in there so we can send it out. If you want a copy, contact Paul. He usually gives you all a hard copy anyway, but if you need another one or want one for somebody, stop in our office. We always have some extra laying around. But it lists all you guys in there, townships, villages, cities, officials, state officials, all information pertinent to the county.
Thanks. All right, next thing we're going to go into is what is the role of a county board member, and we will also get into the committees as well too. So particularly if, for those who have either are new to the board or this is just kind of a refresher, the role of a county board member is primarily a legislative function. And that is that you make policies on behalf of the county through the enactment of ordinances and the approval or not approval thereof of resolutions. Those are the primary ways in which the board sets policy. And so then I listed some of the board functions that kind of fall under that. You establish the county's vision, mission, and purpose. You change that as you feel appropriate when there's maybe a different direction that the county wants to head in, whether it be in a department or overall. Probably one of your most important roles is to adopt an annual budget and levy taxes. Obviously, without the funding for the various programs that were mandated or that we do provide through the county, that is all done through the budget, of course. Different municipalities in Wisconsin, the villages, towns, and cities and counties, the villages, towns, and cities typically, and you're going to hear me say generally a lot, and the reason I do that is because, again, these are general propositions and there are exceptions to them all around. So generally, those types of municipalities, they can do basically what they want to as long as they're not prohibited from doing so by law. Counties can only do what you're allowed to do under the law, and that's generally found in Chapter 59, as I think most of us know. So counties are able to operate and regulate under whatever the statutory authority that grants them to do. And again, most of that is found in Chapter 59 throughout. So we do have limitations on what as a county, what we're able to do. The county board does determine what services are going to be provided. Obviously, there are mandated services, but there are also services that the county can choose to provide. So the county has that, or the board members have that role as well. As no surprise, since you're elected officials, you are to involve, represent, and be accountable to the public. Obviously, by listening to constituents and considering those things when you make decisions and how you vote on things, those are the types of ways that you represent the public, but are also held accountable by the public as well. And then also responsible leadership, maintaining morale and providing a positive work environment for county staff. Again, those are some of the board functions that you as county board members are things to consider as you do your job. But again, primarily it is a legislative function. So then we go into the committees. As we all know, the county is run basically on a committee structure. Committees are designed to provide input to the county board for the final decision. So the committee functions primarily to assist in that policy development that I've been talking about so far. So what committees do, again, you all know this quite well, is that you consider different policies, different resolutions, modifications to ordinances that are specific maybe to a department, maybe some county-wide, and you tweak those those as you feel are best, that could best serve the area that you're dealing with. As an example, if it's the Environmental and Land Use Committee, you're looking at the ordinances and resolutions that pertain to that department. You tweak things to tweak things in a way that you think will best facilitate the operating of that department. So then what you do is, once you have what you feel is the final proposal, you forward that on to the county board then for final approval. So again, the primary function is to assist in that policy development. You draft those ordinances and resolutions with interaction with the staff of the department, hold public hearings when necessary or appropriate, and then obviously the budget recommendations. So those are the primary committee functions, is to assist in the policy development. So then I want to kind of contrast that to the administration and operations. So the policy, as I've indicated, that's a primary role of board and committee members, and that is what you guys set. The administrative operations side of things, those are the staff or the employees for the county. They're tasked with the responsibility of carrying out the policies that you guys make, and making sure that they accomplish those in the most efficient way possible. The administrative or operations, the staff and employees are responsible for the day-to-day operations. That's not something typically that the committee or the boards get, again, generally speaking, get involved in. And then to the staff and employees, they address the department and individual issues, and bring things to oversight committees when it's deemed necessary. So I just wanted to contrast that a little bit with what the operations portion of it is. All right, any questions before we go on to next to his open meetings? Yes.
Not a question, just a comment. When I was new to the board, I had a serious misconception, which took a few years to correct. And I think it's a misconception that many people in the county also share. And that is, the misconception is that there's sort of a hierarchy with towns, townships, towns, and cities at the bottom, and above that there's a level of the county, and above that there's the state, above that there's the federal government. That is actually not true. The county's ability to do anything is severely limited by the statutes. They're in Statute 59. As Judge Radke repeated to me many times, you are a function of the state. And in many situations, the county has far less authority than the townships or the incorporated municipalities. So I think that's something I'd like to reiterate. I think that needs to be said over and over and over again. We actually don't have much power. We are not above the townships. And one of the things that we all learned in the annexation battles was that the county really had very little to say and could really do very little in those in the annexation questions. It was a question of the townships has much more legal standing than the county did.
Mm-hmm.
Just a comment.
Sure. No, good point.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Rick, to briefly, and I'm sorry to interrupt,
No,
but
you're fine.
Give us the concept of home rule, because I think that sort of applies
ties in,
to
yes.
what Tim was just saying, where it's in my understanding that the townships basically can say no to the state. But take it away.
Well, I was not prepared to discuss home rule today. I'm familiar with the concept of it, so I can bring something up here that will help me with that. Give me just a minute. Trying to think where to.
The townships can create regulatory ordinances such as sand mine ordinances. The county has a much more difficult process to do that. The county's ability is severely limited. That's what I remember about home rule.
Yeah, and again, I apologize, I wasn't quite prepared to speak to this in great detail, but it is essentially a policy that, cities, villages, or towns, for that matter as well, too, that they have the authority, and it's basically what's been said already, they have the authority to regulate the matter. Other entities don't have the authority to come in and say, this is what you need to do or what you can do. So the home rule kind of is, this is our home, so to speak, and so we get to do what we want. Obviously, there are exceptions, as in everything else, but for the most part, they get to, I don't want to say do whatever they want to, because there are parameters on it, of course, but they have the say in it, and like Tim said, too, for county level purposes, I'll use that as an example, there isn't a lot of say or input that can happen there. I shouldn't say that. They can give a lot of say and input, but the town or the village or the city can look at you and say, okay, thanks for your input, but this is what we're going to do instead, type of a thing. So that's a general proposition of it. And again, I'm sorry, I'm not going into more detail on it, but it is a luxury that the county does not have.
Rick, can I add something?
Go ahead.
An example, I think of the blend that Trempealeau County has done. All of the all the townships in Trempealeau County have agreed to come under county zoning. Any township could zone itself, but they have chosen to work and be under the county as far as the zoning ordinances go.
Correct.
Which is not universal in the state.
True. Yep, good point.
So in a sense, they've surrendered part of their home rule in order for the county to do the zoning.
I think they have more discretionary power, the townships do, than the county does.
Sure.
Under the concept of home rule.
And that does go back to, like you said earlier as well, Tim, too, that counties are limited by what they're allowed to do under statute, whereas others, they're allowed to do what they're not prohibited from doing, essentially, is what it comes down to. So that's a very big distinction. So, Any others? Comments, questions?
Nope, go ahead.
All right, and we'll go on to open meetings. Again, not a novel concept, but just kind of go over some nuances of it. That first bullet point is just, it's codified in our state statute that it is the policy of this state that the public is entitled to the fullest and most complete information regarding the affairs of government. In other words, transparency. Everything will err on the side of transparency. Again, there are more exceptions to this than I care to go into tonight, but we're going to go into a few of them. But the general proposition is that the public is generally entitled to pretty much everything and see what's going on at any given time. That second bullet point just talks about meetings specifically, that meetings of government bodies shall be held publicly and in places reasonably accessible to members of the public and shall be open to all citizens at all times, and here's the catchphrase, unless expressly provided by law, and we'll go over that in a little bit later. But generally speaking, open meetings means that any time that a government body meets, they must be open to the public, allow reasonable access. So in other words, if there is somebody who needs some kind of reasonable accommodation, that would be provided to them. For example, if someone had a hearing impairment and we had something could provide them to help them hear better while they're present, that's something that we would have to provide, again, if we're able to do so. But again, they have to have the ability to attend if they want to. We all know during COVID, we attempted to do that when things were kind of shut down by live streaming everything, which we are continuing to do now, even though we are back open again. So that's a general proposition. Sorry, when I switch up there, it doesn't switch my computer. Just a couple things about meetings. Meetings in general, again, it's whenever the members of any board or committee, this applies equally to both, whenever they meet, the open meetings requirements are triggered. Here are a couple things to keep in mind. You need a quorum in order to act on anything that's on your agenda. You don't necessarily need a quorum to meet, but you do need a quorum to act on anything that is on your agenda. That typically is a majority of your board or committee members. So if you have 8 members, it's 5. If you have 5, it's 3. Easy to do the math there on those situations. So quorum is important. But there are a couple other types of quorums just to be aware of. One of them is called a negative quorum, and there's a lot of nuances to this one, but as a general proposition, if you have half of your board or committee members meeting, you are a negative quorum. So obviously, if you have 8 members of a committee and 4 of you are meeting, even though you don't have a quorum to act on things, you have a negative quorum. And here's kind of the explanation as how that works. So a tie on a vote of anything is a defeat, and so therefore, whatever it is does not pass. So when you have 4 people, you have enough there to defeat something, whatever might come forward. So if you have 4 members getting together to discuss county business, that could be to block something. These are all just hypothetical examples. That is enough to constitute open meetings. So the open meetings requirements must be met. So therefore, you have a negative quorum if you have half of your committee that's meeting. Obviously, with an odd number, it's not as big of a concern, but even number it is. But it gets a little more complicated, and I won't go too far into it, but there are situations where 2 people can constitute a negative quorum. And here's the example I like to give. If you have a committee of 5 individuals, 3 is all you need in order to have a quorum to vote on things. So 2 people is all you need to defeat something if 2 people want to get together to discuss how to defeat something. So in theory, there are times when 2 people meeting could constitute a negative quorum, which would require or trigger the open meetings requirements. Again, it's not a typical situation, and it doesn't apply to every topic discussed, but just so you just be aware, when you're discussing county business, just be aware of who's present. And that's one of the triggers too. You got to be discussing county business. If you're getting together to talk about the Packer game or the weather outside, that obviously doesn't trigger the requirements. There does have to be some county business that's being discussed during that period of time. The other one is the walking quorum. That one, I think, was Monroe County that had that situation arise there predominantly. And that's where maybe one person, one board or committee member meets with individuals on the same committee or board one at a time, or maybe 2 at a time, to try and get around the quorum aspect of things, to go around and talk to people and discuss business and how people were going to vote on it without conducting a meeting type of a thing. So that under Supreme Court under the Supreme Court case law, that is not allowed. So just be mindful of that as well too. So keep in mind, yes.
One thing I want to bring up, a lot of times now you send us an email and say not to reply to everyone.
Yep.
Is that going to come in? Are you going to talk more about that, or is?
Yep, that's my next thing, actually.
Okay.
So good timing, good segue. Because that would be the form of a meeting. It doesn't have to be an in-person or a phone call. It can be any kind of form. Email communications can trigger the open meetings law requirements. So if someone sends out an email and invites responses from committee or board members, that is going to, if people respond, that's going to potentially be a violation of the open meetings laws. So that's why when you see, particularly from me, or if someone asks me, I'll always advise them to include it on there. It's not because I don't want to hear your guys' input or don't want to hear back from you. I just want to make sure that we don't violate any open meetings laws. So don't reply all, just do a reply only, typically to myself. You do have to be careful if a committee member sends out the email and it says don't reply all. I would caution not to even do a reply just to myself, because you run into those issues of maybe the negative quorum or walking quorum, those types of things. So just be careful. The initial email getting information out there isn't a concern. It's the responses where you start having the discussion. That's where the concerns come into play. So. But it could be email, could be in person, could be video, could be phone call, social media. I mean, any of those places, as long as you're talking about county business and you have a requisite number of individuals, you do run the risk of violating the open meetings requirements. So just be aware of that. If there is a violation and someone does want to challenge that, typically it's referred to, I believe the DA's office is the one that would look into those types of things and investigate and potentially take action on those. So. Questions on that? We got more aspects of meetings and agendas and stuff we're still going to get to yet, so. As I said earlier, there was, unless expressly or allowed by law, which was specifically referring to closed sessions. Closed sessions are exemptions from the open meetings requirements to some extent. You do not need to have them open to the public, and they can be closed off to specific individuals. There are, I believe, 11 exemptions to the open meetings open meetings laws that are listed under statute 19.85 sub 1. You are only allowed to go into closed session for one of those 11 reasons. No other reason except for those are you allowed to go into closed session for. So when you want to go into closed session, as we all know, you list it on your agenda as to the reason why. Generally speaking, just stating the statutory basis for going into closed session is not sufficient to go into closed session. That is thankful to 2007 Supreme Court case that also came out of Monroe County in regards to a school district meeting where they went into closed session and they just listed the statutory exception, and the Supreme Court said that is not sufficient. You need to list more than that in most circumstances. Again, I won't go through all the nuances of it. So you have to give a little bit more information as to what's being discussed. And I'm going to go over more of the agenda, what wording is necessary in a few minutes when we get to that on the next slide. But I just wanted to go over that there are reasons to go into closed session, that those exemptions are very specific. They're narrowly construed, so you can't get super creative. They got to actually fit within those reasons, or you could run into trouble. By law, only the committee or board members of that board or committee are technically allowed into closed session. And as you can see up there highlighted, as usual, there are exceptions. So any parent, board, or committee of that committee, those members are automatically allowed to attend those closed sessions. They don't have to be invited. They don't have to ask permission. They are allowed to attend regardless. And then anybody who the committee invites to attend are also welcome to attend. But I also make the distinction that they're invited to attend, or they're allowed to or invited to attend, but they're not allowed to participate unless called upon by the committee that is actually actively meeting. So that committee or board has to actively ask the people to participate. Otherwise, they are to attend and they can observe and participate that way. So just one thing to keep in mind. Question on closed sessions?
City.
All right. Agendas.
I have a
yeah.
clarification. Information discussed in a closed session is confidential?
It is. Yep, completely confidential. No minutes are taken of closed session items except for any votes or motions that are made. That's the only item that is recorded during a closed session. Otherwise, no minutes are taken, and anything that's discussed there is confidential.
But there's no... Microphone. Oh, I'm sorry. But there's no antidote for people who share information in closed session. I mean, it's just, oh, gee, too bad, somebody decided to talk about information that was discussed at a closed session.
Well, anytime that a board or a committee member does something that is in violation of a rule, a statute, or whatever the case might be, the standing committee or board, I mean, they could always do some form of discussion or censure of that individual for violating the rules, so.
Okay.
Part of the open meetings requirements is that the public be notified of the where is it now? The time, date, place, and subject matter of the meeting. It doesn't have to be an agenda, but they need to be notified of what this meeting is going to be about, when, where, how, why, that kind of stuff. We do it through agendas, and that's a common thing to do. So a reasonable notice to the public has to be regarding the time, date, place, and subject matter of the meeting. And again, I referred to the 2007 Supreme Court case. That didn't apply just to closed sessions. That applied to all agenda items. That the specific requirement, I can't say that word, it was brought in to make sure that everything was more specific when it was listed on an agenda in order for the public to be informed as to what's going on. So things such as discussion of department operations, that's not sufficient because that doesn't tell the public what are you talking about. You know, if it's discussing the current accounting principles and mechanisms we use within the department, you know, that would be sufficient. So it has to give a specific basis in regards to what is being discussed. It's not required by law that it's an action item. I advise that of all departments all the time. It's a best practice to do. But by law, you're not required to put on there that it's an action item and that the board or committee might take an action. But I think it's a best practice, so that way the community knows we're not just going to talk about it, we are potentially going to take some action on it as well. So I do advise departments that it's a best practice to put that on there, and I do recommend that it go on there at all times. So. As we know, only the topics on the agenda are allowed to be discussed. Immediate offshoots of that topic are fair game as well too, but getting too far away, then that's not so much gonna fly too much. And again too, if someone has a concern about a topic being discussed that's not on the agenda, they can file a complaint. Again, I believe it's with the DA's office to investigate. So, questions on agendas? I think most of you know this. When there's a closed session item on your agenda, whenever there's a closed session item on your agenda, by law, you're not allowed to reconvene into open session for 12 hours after that closed session is complete. That's the way the law works. The way around that, and it's legal to do this, is by putting the language in there, reconvene into open session on your agenda, you are allowed to go back into open session that day and finish your business. But so keep in mind, if you don't have that reconvene language on your agenda, once you finish that closed session, you have to stop the meeting for at least 12 hours before you can reconvene into open session. So we're getting down there. Minutes, very brief on this. We're required by law to have some record of whatever the meeting was. Ironically, the minutes don't have to be much by law. The minutes can be as little as, the few requirements there are is whatever motions are made, the motions must be recorded for word. I mean, to the best of our ability. Who made the motion, who seconded the motion, the content of the motion, the vote of the motion on the motion, and if it's a roll call, what each individual supervisor or committee member voted on. Those are the only mandatory requirements for the minutes. Everything else that's added is stuff that we just put in there. There's no requirement to put the discussion that was had, who said what, the tone of the meeting. None of that is required. I know some departments do, some don't, but as long as the motions are recorded, that is what we're legally required to do, so. This is Stacy.
Okay, as you guys know, normal county board meetings are always the third Monday of the month at 7 p.m. The exception is that day meeting in April. That's a Tuesday. That's the third Tuesday in April at 10 a.m. And you know, when you were elected, that's your reorganizational meeting and stuff like that, but we still keep that one the day meeting every year. The annual meeting is in November, and it's the Tuesday after the second Monday. And believe me, you got to look at it right or you get it wrong, because you got to make sure it's check that Tuesday. The board call and calendar, we try to get out right away from our office at the beginning of the month, so you guys know exactly when the county board date and time is. Yeah, see our office if you have any questions on that.
All right, just briefly, parliamentary procedure and meeting etiquette. We use county board rules are the first thing we go to when it comes to parliamentary procedure. We have, Krista had sent out a number of documents in a PDF version before the meeting tonight. They are in your email. Part of that attachment, there are the county board rules on there in case you don't have a copy of them. That way you'll have a copy. But if there's ever a question on a procedure for the board to follow or a committee to follow, look at the county. We look to the county board rules first. If there isn't something in the county board rules that specifically addresses the topic or the issue at hand, then we look at either statutes or Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order, the unabridged version is about a 1,000-page book that has all sorts of fun rules in there that if you ever get really bored or can't sleep some night, feel free to open it up and start looking through it. Again, that's the default if we don't have something that covers it. Otherwise, again, there are some statutory provisions that we have to follow as well, too, so that's just kind of what it comes down to. Our county board rules, we revise any revisions we want to make every 2 years, the odd-numbered years. So this is the year we'll be making any changes that we want to see. So if anybody has any input, has some changes they want to see to the county board rules, now would be the time to let the Executive Finance Committee members know, because they're the ones that go over those rules.
Is there excuse me.
Yeah.
Is there Is there a time limit, a deadline for when the Exec Finance Committee will make decisions on board rules?
I don't know if there's a specific hard and fast deadline.
I don't think so.
No, just as long as they're enacted before the end of the year is my understanding.
Before December 31st.
Yeah, with your
So I'd
next
say,
committee,
yeah, probably the December meeting would be, okay, thank you.
Yep. Just so you know, I think typically they do it earlier than that. I think it's usually in the fall is when they usually wrap that up, so.
I'm guessing November, because
November?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's right around budget, the same time as budget,
Oh,
you know, so
okay.
everything's all uniform.
Gotcha. Yep, that sounds good. And then just a couple things on meeting etiquette. Again, this is nothing earth-shattering by any means. Be punctual to meetings. If you're not going to make it, let Paul or Stacy know that you can't make it, just so they have an idea. Turn cell phones off or make sure they're muted during the meetings. Be courteous to other board members. And by that, I mean, it's like when someone's talking, let them talk, let them finish what they're saying. Technically, you're supposed to be recognized by the chair before you speak. So let someone finish speaking. You may not agree with their position. That's fine. Not everybody has to agree. But at least let them finish what they're saying and not try to talk over everybody. And just have kind of what I call a professional debate. Have a good conversation about it. And at the end of the day, if you can agree to disagree, so be it.
Going back to the one before, the board rules change every 2 years. Is that the year before we have the elections, the new elections?
Yep, so it's for the new board.
So it's for the new board, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Correct. Which bring up a good point, which actually you're probably going to bring up in your part of it as well too. Just like county board compensation, you can't change it for your existing board, but you can change it for the next board that comes after the next election type of a thing. So speaking of, Krista's up.
All right, I'll just be brief. Like Rick said, previously, I had sent out an email to all board members with a bunch of fun policies for you all to read. It's 200 and some pages long, so I tried to save a few trees. So refer to your email on this. I'm just going to briefly touch on some of these policies that are available. So the first one that is listed, there's an org chart within that email, as well as an office phone extension listing for all county employees. So if you ever need to get a hold of anyone, you can refer to that office extension listing. The next document within that email is our collective bargaining agreement. This is for our patrol officers and detectives. So we have 21 employees currently that fall underneath that collective bargaining agreement, and that is actually set to expire at the end of this year. So we will begin negotiations here probably this fall. Also within that policy list is our compensation policy. So this policy basically establishes Trempealeau County employee pay and all the things that go into that. So it's used to establish and administer fair and equitable principles. It is up to the HR director's responsibility to be administering that plan consistently for each employee and candidate. However, it is the Personnel Bargaining Committee that oversees that program and policy. Also, do know we are in the middle of a compensation study this year. I'm hoping to get that wrapped up this fall, so that'll be coming to your attention later, like I said, this fall. We also have the IT or computer usage policy. I'm sure when all of you received your laptops or your Surfaces from IT, they went over that. It is a 20-plus page policy, so feel free to refer to that in that email. I also have included the employee handbook on that email chain. You'll notice that there are some addendums or attachments to that handbook. It was last updated in 2013, so there have been some things that needed to be updated. It is our goal in Human Resources to update that policy or that handbook hopefully next year. So look out for that. Another important policy is our grievance policy. So this policy provides a procedure to employees to address any concerns regarding any discipline, termination, and workplace safety as required by law, in which then allows their concerns to be reviewed by an impartial hearing officer, and then the ability to potentially appeal that to the county board when appropriate. So you'll find that policy again within that email. And the last one I have to just briefly touch upon is our recruitment policy. So this talks basically everything that goes into the recruiting policy here in Trempealeau County. So how we accept applications, how those applicants are selected, what the interview process looks like, what our background and reference process look like, how we notify employees. We do have a nepotism policy that is in addition to our recruitment policy. I do not have that available in the handout that I had sent to all of you, but do know that one is available as well. The only other thing I have to mention, we do have a SharePoint site where all of our additional policies and procedures are housed. If you're needing access to that SharePoint site, either let myself know or let IT know to get access to that. You'll find all of our additional policies out there. So.
And Stacy.
Yeah, the important part
Yes,
about getting paid.
Exactly.
Okay, whenever you guys have a county board meeting, I automatically pay you for tonight's meeting tomorrow, or the day meeting. I usually try to get the payroll done that day. You're automatically given the per diem, which is $100 for a board meeting, and your mileage, except like Michelle's virtual, she won't get her mileage tonight. That's just something that's changed since COVID started. For normal committee meetings, Board of Health and Highway Department and some individual member committees turn in their vouchers to me directly, so you don't have to worry about that. And I try to list that on your packets that I give you in your mailboxes in our office. So when you turn in those sheets I give you, I need you to write 310 or whatever the date is, Human Service Committee. I need you to tell me if it's a 3-hour meeting or higher. So put 50 or 100 on there, and then your mileage. You can just give me your mileage number, 36, 28, whatever it is, and I'll calculate that since the mileage rates change frequently. Keep in mind, if you come to a meeting to the county boardroom or county, any meeting, and it's canceled, you didn't have quorum or canceled for any other reason, you still get your mileage, but you won't get per diem for that meeting. So make sure you record it on your sheet, because I won't know. The approved minutes won't come out till the following month, so I won't be able to see if you were there or not. That's something you guys got to fill out and let me know. And don't forget to sign the front of that sheet. That's something that people forget sometimes, but then I'll just make a little note. They turned it in to me, so I know it was from them. Travel policy, if you guys attend a conference or anything, you get paid meal reimbursements. 8, 9, 17. 8 breakfast, 9 lunch, 17. Make sure it's a detailed receipt that you give, not just the little credit card. No tips are included on that. And detailed, not the credit card.
No alcohol?
No alcohol, yes, no tips, and there was something else. That's why I asked for a detailed receipt. And our mileage reimbursement always goes with the federal rate, and we try to get that out to you. It's usually the end of December before we get it from the IRS. But like I said, don't worry about it. Just put your mileage number down and I'll calculate that for you. Group travel, not sure why Paul has this on here, but if you all rode together to the county board, I still pay each one of you mileage. It's just the way the statutes read. But if you all travel to the highway conference together and take the highway van, none of you get mileage. Yep.
So that is just for county board meetings? If we all take
Yes,
turns
only
driving?
for, yes, only for county board, yeah, and that's in the state statute.
Who does that?
Paul refers to something, if you come on your horse, you still get mileage. I'm not sure what that's about. When Lynn does the calendar and you guys get your calendar every month, make note on there when the county board claims are due. We try to make it as late as possible, but I still need time to get that together and get the resolution together for the audit committee on Thursday. If I have it in line and everything's going good and I get it late, I can still add it quick, just depends how we're sitting. Let's see. Submission pay, the annual conference, I'm not sure what he wanted me to talk about on that.
Yeah, I think he was just going to remind everybody that the WCA annual convention's coming up. I don't know the dates offhand, so.
Turn in, here comes Paul.
Oh, there he is.
He wants you to turn in your registration to us so we can get them all in a timely manner, I'm assuming.
It's in lacrosse this year, right?
10 rooms in lacrosse.
In lacrosse.
He wanted me here to talk about your payment stuff, and he's just in time to talk about the budget.
Did you talk about the payments already?
Yep.
Did Blair win?
5-4, they won.
Right.
So it's Paul's turn for the budget.
I'll just talk really fast because we will be in about 3 weeks starting the budget process for this fall. We won't know what our levy limit will be until probably the middle of August, but we got to start early. So that's the big thing, is that budget will be starting about the middle of July.
Well, that was short and sweet. Oh.
I just have a question for you, Paul. Have we learned any more information about when the census data is going to be?
WCA, were you
No.
in on that meeting today, the leadership meeting?
So far, it hasn't been settled yet by it's gotta
No,
go to a vote.
the way it looks is that for county board elections, we'll use the same districts as we have now because there's no way we can get them done. We have, under the regular way it's supposed to be, we have till July 1st to get our lines done, and we haven't even got the census numbers, and July 1st is next week.
I just asked because we kind of need that census data for the outdoor plan that we're working on, but we did get an extension until, I think, November or something to have that done. Okay. So there's no, we don't know. Is that
We
the
don't
answer?
know.
Well,
Yep.
we're supposed to be calling our congressman to vote to extend it because there's no way we'll get it done in time.
Okay.
But it's still got to go through the House and Senate. Or Assembly and Senate, depending on how you say it. But they're up for vote. So that was what WCA said. Write your congressman or call your senator and have them delay it because it's way too late to get it done.
Okay.
And then one other added note is we got an email today from the U.S. Treasury, and half of our ARPA money is going to be in our bank account in the next couple days.
By the way, Paul was working on getting through that portal for a month.
It was exactly a month, because I started on May 14th. I started May 14th, and I'll kind of give you a little thing about that. Was you had to download the front and back of your driver's license. I had no problem with that. The next thing I had to do was a video selfie of myself with my cell phone, and my phone wouldn't do it. I had our IT department on that thing forever. It just didn't work. And I tried just about every single day to do a selfie. I'm too old for selfies.
Did you buy a new phone?
Not yet.
Working on that yet. All right, that's pretty much everything we have. Just a couple closing remarks here. I want to thank Krista and Stacy and Paul for helping put this all together. Krista put that packet together of all those pages, so thank you for doing that as well, too. If you found this really riveting, just an FYI, I'm being sarcastic. We're doing an all-staff training on open meetings and public records on July 20th and 21st. There are two identical training sessions starting at 1 o'clock each day. We do that about every 2 years just to give the staff kind of an update on where things stand. Feel free to, if you want to attend, feel free to come to one of those. I just asked you to let me know so we can make sure we have enough seating for everybody at each one of those sessions. But that's on July 20th and 21st at 1 o'clock in the Trempealeau room that we're doing an all-staff training on those. Other than that, any last questions anybody has?
You talked about having another one of these next month?
Oh, yeah, there is another one next month. Actually, someone from our insurance company is coming in. Krista probably knows more about it than I do, but I believe it's all the staff took it last year? 2 years ago. It's a sexual harassment training that our insurance company provides to all staff, and so they're going to provide it to the county board. Committee members are invited as well, too, at next month's meeting, starting at 6 o'clock again. So.
And that'll take about an hour?
Yes.
Okay.
We limited them to an hour, so. Because I think the one that they provide the staff was longer, but we cut it down to an hour. All right, thanks, everybody.
And thank you, Stacy.
Okay, item C, television studio presentations. Where is that? Oh, there he is.
All right, so I've got two things for you guys today. First, I'm pleased to announce that Wisconsin Community Media has awarded Daryl Joten with the Friend of Access Award for 2021. This is a very prestigious award given to people that make a difference in community media in Wisconsin. Other people who have received this award include U.S. senators, state senators and representatives, and even Olin Femright. Daryl has been a big supporter of the TV studio and has volunteered to help after his workday with things such as the auction. So it is my great honor to present Daryl with this Friend of Access Award from Wisconsin Community Media. I should just use
There's this. Well, I don't have any kind of speech prepared at all. I told Derek I was just going to come grab the plaque and go. But yeah, I would like to thank Derek and his staff for nominating me for this award, and the Wisconsin Community Media, obviously, for selecting me this year. And I'd also like to thank the board for their continued support of the TV studio. So, otherwise, I think that's it.
All right, and then I have one more for you. As many of you know, Nancy Bergman and Mary C. Anderson produce an almost weekly program, History Files, on different topics of history within Trempealeau County. We submitted one of their shows for the Best of the Midwest Media Fest, and they got a merit award, but they also got Best in Show produced by seniors. So I have plaques for both of them as well. Come on.
You know, I almost feel guilty taking this because Mary and I have so much fun doing these programs. It's great fun, and we really enjoy it, and we love it when people stop and talk to us and say, yeah, we really like that you did that the other night, or whatever. And last time we got one of these awards this year, Mary barely made it because she was out chasing cows because they'd gotten out. But tonight was no problem, thank goodness. Well, thank you.
Yes, we appreciate all the support.
I was just saying, your shows are great, so thank you.
Oh,
Well, thank you.
we appreciate that. We
Yeah.
hear it a lot. It's actually almost comical because we've been kind of pinned down in gas stations and grocery stores and in La Crosse, visiting at a hospital. People look and they're like, "Oh, I know the name of that road. We followed that road." Such an interesting history piece about Trempealeau County. And so, you know, it, I think, helped keep us sane through COVID when you couldn't do anything and there was no fun. Plus, we got to learn a lot about Trempealeau County.
Yep, and we still are, so.
And we appreciate all of your continued support for the TV studio and for the hard work for Trempealeau County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, item 7. That's appointment from the town board representative for Environmental Land Use Committee. The citizen member in the past has been Kathy Zieglin. It is.
Are you skipping over?
They moved it up.
Oh, they did, okay.
Anyway, I did get a voicemail from her. Oh, where is it? It said, "Good morning, John. I'm calling to let you know that I am withdrawing my name from consideration for reappointment to Land Use Committee. I don't feel it's right at this time to oppose the council's Towns Association Committee, and definitely would like to be back out there, but I think it's time I relinquish my position to the Towns Association preferred candidate." It's a lot longer. At the time, she was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I hope she had a nice vacation. But so the reappointment for the Land Use Committee is Anthony Munson. So I'm looking for approval.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we approve that nomination.
Motion made and seconded. Can we just do a voice vote this time? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? So thank you, Tony. I would like to thank
First
Kathy
Wednesday of the
Zieglin
month.
for the 8 years plus she spent on here, did a super job on the committee, and also serves on the, I forget what to call it, on the state committee. Somebody in that committee knows. Wisconsin Land and Water Board, and she continues to do that, I think, right? So I'm sure anytime you need anything from Kathy, she'd be willing to help out the committee. Thank you very much. Environmental land use, resolutions. Oh, I missed it. Oh, I missed 6. That's the 2000 opposition to enactment of any legislation that would infringe upon the right to keep and bear arms. That's our statutory
Okay.
sanctuary county resolution.
Whereas the right of the people to keep and bear arms is guaranteed as an individual right under the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and under the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, Article 1, Section 25, quotes, "The people have the right to keep and bear arms for security, defense, hunting, recreation, and any other lawful purpose," end of quotes. And whereas the right of the people to keep and bear arms for defense of life, liberty, and property is regarded as an inalienable right by the people of Trempealeau County. Whereas the people of Trempealeau County derive economic benefit from all safe and legal forms of firearm recreation, hunting, and shooting conducted within Trempealeau County while using all types of firearms allowable under the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin. Whereas the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors are elected to represent the people of Trempealeau County and are duly sworn by their oath of office to uphold the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin. Whereas the members of the Wisconsin House of Representatives and the Wisconsin Senate are elected by the people of the State of Wisconsin are duly sworn by their oath of office to uphold the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin. And whereas the Trumpealeau County Board of Supervisors opposes any legislation considered by the Wisconsin State Legislature or the Wisconsin Senate that would infringe on the right to keep and bear arms and would ban the possession and use of any firearms, magazines, ammunition, or body armor now employed by individual citizens of Trempealeau County for the defense of life, liberty, and property, or would require a firearms owner ID card or tax the possession of firearms or ammunition within Trempealeau County. Now be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors hereby declares Trempealeau County to be a Second Amendment sanctuary county. Be it further resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors opposes the enactment of any legislation that would infringe upon the right of the people to keep and bear arms and considers such laws to be unconstitutional and beyond lawful legislative authority. Be it further resolved that the Trumpealeau County Board of Supervisors supports the non-enforcement of non-constitutional firearms laws against citizens of Trempealeau County. Be it further resolved, the Trumpealeau County Board of Supervisors will not appropriate any funds that support unconstitutional laws enacted against the citizens of Trempealeau County. Be it further resolved that the Trumpealeau County Board of Supervisors directs the county clerk to forward this resolution to the governor, assembly members, and senators representing Trumpealeau County and the Wisconsin Counties Association. And it's being presented by the county board's chair, actually.
Yeah, this went to committee, and the committee passed it on to the full board, so tonight we vote on it, one way or the other. So is there a motion to approve this?
Also move.
Motion by Mr. Feltus. Seconded by Mr. Scoyne. Discussion. And that's by the way, the discussion is limited to just the board. No public comments on this, just the board.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Due to the overwhelming response I've been getting on this issue, both pros and cons, I would like to make a motion to send this to an advisory referendum for the spring of 2022 and let the entire public of Trempealeau County make the decision on this, not a 17-member county board.
Is there a second to his amendment? Seconded by Mr. Wallach. Any discussion of the amendment?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
who would pay for this? I mean, there would be a cost associated with this, correct, Paul?
Technically not, because it's a regular scheduled election. It'll be when you guys are all up for re-election, and school boards and municipalities. So it's a regular election. So it's one we have to have anyway.
Mr. Ziegler, I see you had a comment?
Yes, I'm going to oppose that amendment from Mr. Tollefson on the basis that I also have had a great deal of response. I was going to go back here and count. I mean, I was still getting phone calls, emails, and so forth as of, I checked at 2 o'clock this afternoon. It would be something like 70 responses from citizens, and these responses include everything from comments. I think we owe these people a decision. I really don't think that I think we would be shirking our responsibility as board members to send it to a referendum. The resolution asks the County Board of Supervisors to act. The County Board of Supervisors or some committee has had this in front of them since February. I would be voting no, because I think it's our job to accept the responsibility of making a decision and make a decision.
Okay. This is just on the amendment now, so.
This is just
Yep.
on the amendment.
Yeah.
To Chair, I would have to mirror Supervisor Zeglin's comments. I have received more comments on this topic from the public, my constituents, and countywide than ever before in my almost 27 years of elected service. I think it would be insulting to those people that contacted me. I would feel like I was shirking my responsibility by voting in favor of going to a referendum.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, George?
A referendum would be advisory. It would be coming back to the county board eventually. We're here to debate, deliberate, decide. I think we've had enough input to be able to do that tonight.
Any other comments on the amendment? Yes.
I would agree with what Tim and George, have said. However, the Assembly has already passed a Second Amendment sanctuary bill of the Wisconsin Assembly. It has not landed on the Senate yet, but it passed unanimously with all Republicans and one Democrat voting on June 7th. So the state of Wisconsin will be making a decision on this in the near future. I too have received numerous calls, visits from constituents, emails, letters regarding this situation. So we need to make a decision. However, the state is also in the process of making a decision.
Okay.
And their bill says that it would bar enforcement of any gun restrictions. So what we're being asked to do is ignore any laws that may come before.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Schreiner.
can I get some clarification on Supervisor Brandt's statement about an advisory referendum? The results would come back to this body for action. Is that accurate?
That is correct. It would just be an advisory referendum, so this board would still have to decide on the actual.
So essentially, to vote in favor of this amended motion would be just delaying it for about 12 to 14 months.
For a period of time, yes.
Well, earliest we could bring it up would be the May 22.
April. You could have it on April.
Oh.
April County Board.
Okay, right. April 2nd, first Tuesday in April is the election?
Yep.
Okay, so the April.
10 months anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I have one more
Yes.
question. I talked to Paul this morning. So, Paul, did you do your background
We
check?
tried. Rick and I tried.
I believe also that putting this item on as an advisory, on the ballot as an advisory referendum is also possible for any citizen group. We may not know exactly how many people are required, but the fact that this committee, that this board does not send it to a referendum still leaves the option open that a group of people could put it on, include it as a referendum.
I think Rick is going to answer that question.
And I can clarify, it is not available at a county level for citizen members to do that, except for very specific purposes, and I have them listed here. This would not fall under that. Now, if this was at a different municipality, whether it be a city or something along those lines, then that option would be available. It's called direct legislation referendum, but it is not available to at a county level to county electors. So a committee, a group of citizens could not do this on their own. It would have to come from this board.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yes, Michelle.
Yes.
I feel differently. I feel that our constituents and the public should have a right to vote on the referendum, being their taxpayers, and I just feel that way. Thank you.
Okay. There's no further comments. We'll vote on the amendment. This is whether to send it to, one more, missed it.
I just want to say, I've heard from a number of people in my district, and both sides are very passionate about it. In my district, I've had more that do not support it, but I am also under the feeling that a referendum would not be a bad idea. I truly think that we're going to hear from many more of them and get an accurate count on who is in favor and who is not. I mean, I've heard from a small percentage in my district, 60, 70 people, which hardly constitutes a voting group. And I feel it is a decision that they should be in on.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Who would draft this? That would, if it were to go to a referendum, who would actually draft this?
I would say,
Well, and I was just going to address that, if this is going to go to referendum, actually, a resolution has to be presented that has the specific question that will be included on the ballot. So this, my advice would be is, if the board decides that they want to move it towards a referendum, refer it to either law enforcement or exec finance to come up with the language of the question, and then have that resolution come back to this board for approval on the exact wording. That would be my suggestion. But by law, it does have to be, the specific language has to be in a resolution approved by this board before the election.
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
Is there anything in there now that possibly gets the county in any liability or possible liability for the resolution that's out there right now?
What do you say on that?
And I think everybody got a copy of the resolution with highlights in yellow. This is strictly from a purely legal standpoint. I do have some concerns about some of the language. The biggest concern I have about the resolution as drafted is it puts the burden on this board to decide what is a constitutional and unconstitutional, actually, what is an unconstitutional law. The way our government is set up, the courts do that. That is their function. They determine what is unconstitutional. The law sets that whenever a law is enacted by the legislature, it is presumed constitutional until a court determines otherwise. And so by the language of this particular resolution, basically this board would have to make those determinations, which I don't believe you have the authority to do. Now, that's just my legal opinion on that. That's my biggest concern about it, is the use of the unconstitutional thing and how that's to be determined. Which ones are legit and which ones are not. So that's my biggest concern, because then all of a sudden this board makes a decision that something is unconstitutional and it determines you don't have the authority to do so, and someone doesn't enforce the law and there's some kind of a situation, whatever it is, I don't even know what that would be, is someone going to try and then sue the county for liability?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
The problem I have here right now is a moral one, and I'm sure we all feel that way. This feels to me like government overreach. People are afraid that state and federal government is going to exercise government overreach on the Second Amendment. And so your response is to come to this governing body and ask us to commit government overreach. I am not comfortable taking upon myself powers that have not been invested in me by state statute. I am not comfortable going beyond that which has been endowed to us by law. Because if this month we do this, what issue do we take on next month and decide that we get to do overreach on? What group comes to us next month and says, please ignore the law on this? I am not at all comfortable trying to decide what's constitutional or not, but I am even more uncomfortable with the idea of committing government overreach, of exceeding my authority. 6 months ago, this room was packed with people who told us to stay in our lane, to not exceed our authority, to not ask for masks, and to not shut down businesses. And now we have people coming to us telling us to get out of our lane and to exceed our authority and to do things that we are not authorized to do, to take authorities and jurisdictions we don't have, to take powers that have not been given to us. To do an abuse of power like this is, in essence, tyranny. To take power you don't have and exercise it over people is not right, and I am not comfortable doing that. It goes against everything I believe about where government's limits should be. And when we are so afraid of something that we are willing to surrender our liberty for it. You guys know the rest of the quote. We don't deserve either security or liberty. And right now, I know so many people feel so strongly, so many fears. I have a concealed carry permit. I carry a gun. I come from a long line of extremely conservative people. Grew up at the feet of John Birch Society loyalists. They are about as, they think libertarians are too liberal. This is where I have come from and where I have evolved my positions on. This scares me, this alarms me, and it baffles me. Why would people come to a governing body and ask us to take upon ourselves authority we don't have? Why would you ask us to do government overreach in response to your fear of government overreach? I don't know how we resolve this. I don't know how we alleviate fears, but I'm not comfortable taking authority that's not mine. I'm not comfortable saying that I have jurisdictions I don't have. The minute I decide to do that is the minute that I have become that which I do not believe should be in power. And that creates the dilemma that I'm talking about. And as far as I'm concerned, I only see abstention as the only way that I can reconcile my values and my authorities and my job, which is to represent the people of this county using the authorities I've been given to do the things that I've been given authority to do. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, George.
The question's related to the referendum.
Yeah. Is this in regards to the referendum?
Well, I did have a question, but I have to reach back and see what it, the question is, okay, so this would go on the referendum in April. The Assembly has already passed the bill, and it's going to the Senate in Wisconsin. Of course, the Senate is going to pass it. So what, does that make the referendum a moot issue in April?
Well, it certainly depends. I mean, certainly the governor could veto, and I don't know if they have enough to veto it. I would expect that there could very well be legal challenges to it. I've read that other states have gotten theirs struck down.
There's legal challenges in Portland, in Washington, and in Virginia.
So
to the unconstitutionality of these sanctuary, 2A sanctuary resolutions. And I can tell you, Sally, the next thing that people are going to ask for, because I've already heard this, will you please make Trempealeau County a marijuana sanctuary county? Because I know a lot of people who would love to use medical marijuana for different ills. So that's going to be the next thing that I'm going to be asked to bring to this group should this pass. There's a large amount of people that want marijuana to be legal, and the states all around us have made it legal. Wisconsin is not. So, and there are states that have done so. Massachusetts, although it's legal there, but that is the next thing. You know, I don't like to pay my taxes. Could we be a tax-free county? I don't like the speed limits. You know. But that's people want it to be a marijuana, that's next. So I will be bringing a referendum soon.
Okay. Any more discussion on the amendment? Just strictly on the amendment. Any more discussion just on the amendment? Okay, the amendment was to refer this to a referendum for April. A vote yes is to refer it. A vote no is to go back to the original. So, roll call.
Roll call, okay. Got it straight, yes and no? Chuck Wallach?
Yes.
Tim Zeglin?
No.
Dan Schreiner?
No.
Kellen Nelson?
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter?
No.
Kurt Skoyen?
I got a lot of thought on this, but I'm going to vote yes.
Ron Johnson?
Yes.
Rick Nimitz?
No.
Doug Winters?
Yes.
Sally Miller?
Yes.
Richard Seisha?
No.
Joe Feltes?
No.
George Brandt?
No.
Beth Killian?
No.
Randy Tollefson?
Yes.
Michelle Haynes?
Yes.
John Austin?
Where are we at?
I'm not going to show you.
You can't do math in your...
No.
It fails.
What was the number?
8 to 9. It was 8 to 8 till him.
You wanted the job.
So the amendment fails.
So now we're back to the original resolution, and that is to vote on the Sanctuary County Amendment. Is there any discussion on the original resolution?
Call the question. What? You want to talk about it longer than 3 months?
Well, I mean, I just wanted to repeat what I said in exec finance, that's
Yeah.
all. All right.
And I'd rather vote on it.
I gotta write no amendment on this.
No comments?
I do.
One comment.
Unless you allow his calling the question.
We'll allow comments. We have a crowd here that wants to hear our comments anyway.
I thought the deliberation
Chair?
part would be important.
Yeah.
I call the question.
Well, we already had that one. But
Why don't you give me a clarification?
I'm going to allow the comments. Go ahead.
Okay, well, it came in exec finance committee back in February, and I had said my concerns were related to three elements, and when folks call me to ask me how I feel about this, I say, these are my concerns. One is the form that it's taken to get to the county board is beyond anything my experience has been in terms of how a resolution gets to the county board. Even when citizens bring concerns to the county board, they work with the committee, they clarify their issues, the committee helps them to decide, and staff helps them to decide how it is to approach, to first of all, define what the issue is, define what the concern is, identify the concern if there's, like, for instance, my suggestion would be find a state or a municipality where there's some legislation pending related specifically to the state of Wisconsin, or related specifically to Trempealeau County that one is concerned about, and then put that in one of the whereas sections. So the development of the resolution itself is not followed the kind of form that has always been taken in the 25 years that I've been serving on the county board, or nearly 25. The other has to do with the last one. The third one, of course, is the one that Rick raises, having to do with imbuing a sort of power to us to nullify things that we determine we don't like. I'm kind of a student of history, so the fact that this is almost a continuation of the 1840s nullification debate that John C. Calhoun was such a big fan of, well, if I don't like the federal law, then the state doesn't have to follow it. So, I mean, I thought that was resolved at some point, but it's kind of fun to see that it's still bumping around some way. But it's still not legal. You can't just decide which laws to do or not to do. And then my third concern would be basically telling law enforcement not to enforce the law. And that puts us at risk in any number of ways. So those are my three concerns. They have to do with the form of the creation of the resolution and how it got to the county board. No committee signed off on it. It wasn't approved by any committee. It asks us to break the law, and it also asks us to take on responsibilities that aren't ours.
Ms. Nutter.
I got a ton of calls, letters, emails from constituents, and it was probably 10 to 1 for asking me to vote against this. And there were three things that really the letters were like from the heart, emotional on both sides, and I couldn't help that. Some woman asked me to please stop the big lies. No one's coming for your guns. There was so many emotional things. But one person sent to me a quote from a Supreme Court Justice, Louis Brandeis, and it was about 100 years ago. He said, "If the government becomes a lawbreaker, it breeds contempt for the law. It invites every man to become a law unto himself and invites anarchy." Another person said to me, "I'm watching democracy die before my eyes." And a woman said to me today, "Be brave, be courageous." So I think we need to take a deep breath. We need to realize that and I said this when I spoke in front of the Law Enforcement Committee, in order to make changes to an amendment to the Constitution, it requires a supermajority in the House and in the Senate. Then, should by some miracle that happen in this day and age, 3/4 of the states have to agree. That's 38 states would have to say, to hell with the Second Amendment. And that is not going to happen in my grandchild's lifetime, and he's 2. I've been hearing since I was in high school, they're coming for your guns. It hasn't happened. So I feel like we cannot, I agree with you, Sally, we cannot be the people who decide what laws to break and what laws to not break. You know, sometimes I like to go 65 miles an hour, but the speed limit's 55. I mean, we have to be law and order people, and I don't want to take on the responsibility of deciding what's legal and what's not. And actually the state, what's before the state Senate in the next couple of weeks, they're asking the state to bar any enforcement of any new federal gun restrictions. And there is nothing pending. I just went and looked. There's nothing pending in Wisconsin for any gun legislation, and nothing in the federal government. They're working on infrastructure, COVID relief, and jobs. There's no gun legislation anywhere.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, one more comment.
Okay. Part of and I could amend the heck out of this, I really could, and probably put something forward that people could choke down. Everybody would walk away not happy on both sides, and that could be done. That could be an option. I do believe that people feel passionately enough that, like I said, nobody would walk away happy from it. But some of the problems that I do have with this go to what my experiences are every day of the week. I am a domestic abuse advocate. I would work with victims of abuse. Domestic abuse, sexual abuse, child abuse, elder abuse, individual at risk abuse. That is what I do all day, every day. Just because you're not seeing a police report or you're not seeing it on the court docket that there might be a gun incident involved in some sort of an abuse case doesn't mean it's not happening. It might mean, one, that it didn't get charged, so it didn't make it to the docket, or it might mean it wasn't reported. We may not have had somebody shot and killed in our county recently, but we've certainly had attempts. And we've certainly had the use of guns, well, what's today? Monday. So in the past week, we've had, I would say at least 2 or 3 times a week, somebody calls me and tells me that in the course of having an argument with an abusive spouse, the spouse either threatened to use the gun or pulled the gun out and put it down as a weapon of intimidation. I would strongly encourage those of you who are organizing very well and very effectively, please reach out to other fellow gun owners. Please, I would beg the Rod and Gun Clubs to please start having training and conversations about the use of guns and abuse. I would be more than happy to assist. I really would. It is something that it's terrifying, it's heartbreaking, and it would probably hurt your heart to hear how many children talk about seeing a parent pointing a gun or actually being shot at. I have been given permission to discuss one situation. We may not have had any homicides in our county, but we have had deaths, and they've had affected us. They happened elsewhere. Abusers took victims to other states and purchased guns and then did the killing there. And it's heartbreaking, and there's a lot of people with these kinds of stories. And I worry that people think that maybe the domestic abuse injunction law that requires the surrender of firearms might not be constitutional. I worry that people might think that they don't have to surrender their firearms when they get to an injunction. The criteria for an injunction is pretty tough. That's what I do. I'm a legal advocate, so I get into court with people, and when we've met that standard, Judge Radke is pretty clear on his enforcement of it. He's made clear that he will continue to order what the law requires, which is the surrender of firearms in the event that a domestic abuse injunction or a child abuse injunction is granted. I worry about some of the language where people might think this means I don't have to, because I've actually had somebody tell me in the course of my job that she was told, I don't have to give up my guns, this is a sanctuary county. And that hit me pretty hard, because I knew the motion that I had made at the Law Enforcement Committee meeting, which was to send it to this full board. I know that that was not at all the intent of the people who drafted this resolution, and I know that, and I can see people nodding, and I can see that you're feeling that concern that I have as well. I don't know how we move forward on this, but right now, when I look at all the things that I know and all the things I feel and all the things that I've heard, I think there's got to be a pathway. Got to be a pathway to help you feel better, and I don't know what that is, but I am willing to work with you on it. I am willing to work with all of you on it and find a way to help you either figure out what we need to do, what wording we need to do, or where we go with it, but do it in such a way that doesn't send a message to victims of abuse that we think it's okay to ignore the laws. I think there's got to be a common ground, and I'm telling you right now, I will help you with it. My number's in the book. Call me.
One more comment.
Sally, you brought up an interesting point, because in the law that is going to go before the Senate in the state of Wisconsin, law enforcement will no longer be able to confiscate guns from a misdemeanor domestic violence situation. And there was a death in this county. It happened in Strum. A woman was shot and killed by her husband on Elm Street. And I knew her, and I knew what happened. So to say it's never happened in this county is not accurate.
Okay, Mr. Wally.
Could I make one comment?
Yes.
We're putting the horse, or the cart ahead of the horse here. We're talking about a resolution for a law that hasn't even been passed yet. How do we know what the law is going to say if we're making a resolution against it? Why not wait until the law is passed and then we can do something concrete? Right now, we don't know what that law is going to say.
It's the law that's pending in the state of Wisconsin right now is pretty clear.
No.
The assembly passed it. It's
But
going
I'm
to
talking
the
about the
Senate.
federal government one that's going to pass. We don't know where that's going to go, and we're talking about a resolution for a law that is not even a law.
Well, right.
How can we even be dealing with that?
And what we're doing may be unconstitutional as well, so.
Okay, that's all I've said.
I think
I'm
we've
done.
probably gone on this subject long enough, unless somebody's got an urgent comment. We'll
John?
go to the vote. Yes.
I don't know if it's so urgent, and I did refer earlier to the, I've been keeping track of this scrupulously since this started. Every contact, every email, every personal conversation. And I don't have to, this really isn't even a hard decision, because I think my principal job as an elected official is to reflect the opinion of the constituents. I've done my best to weed out anybody who is not a county resident on some of these various letters, and I've done that. And the head count, and people who have contacted me more than once. Some people have contacted me 3 times. They get 1 vote. But the count is, I've had, if you weed out all the extraneous matter and all the repeats, I've had 16 contacts in favor and 49 against. This makes it a no-brainer for me as an elected official. It's an overwhelming 3-to-1 count against this resolution. And the other aspect is that word unconstitutionality. I would have to remind everybody, as Corporation Counsel told us about 10 minutes ago, every law is constitutional until it's struck down by the courts. This County Board of Supervisors does not have the ability to say what's constitutional. The sheriff does not have the ability to say what's constitutional. This board does not have the ability to tell the sheriff what to do, and this board does not have the ability to constrain any future boards from doing anything. Roll all those together, there's nothing to think about.
Okay. Let's see no more comments. We'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Chair?
This is,
You haven't had anybody adopt it yet, or second on it.
It was the original.
yeah, original. We did have a,
Before the amendment.
yeah, before we had the amendment.
Listen, Skoyan.
Yeah. So a yes vote is To approve the resolution and no vote is
To not.
to not. So, call the roll.
Okay. Tim Zeglin.
No.
Dan Schreiner.
No.
Kellen Nelson.
No.
Jeannie Nutter.
No.
Kurt Skoyan.
I will vote yes because my constituents were a majority.
Turn your mic on, honey.
I will vote yes because my constituents were in majority on what they wish to have.
Ron Johnson.
No.
Rick Nimitz.
No.
Douglas Winters.
No.
Sally Miller.
Abstain.
That's
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
Joe Feltes.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Someone turned on my mic for me, thank you. No.
Beth Killian.
According to my constituents, I had 2 in my district say yes, and I had 7 in my district say no, so I have to go with no.
Randy Tollefson.
No.
Michelle Haynes.
No.
John Austin.
yes.
Chuck Wallach.
No.
Four yes, 12 no, 1 abstain.
Can't figure it out. Okay.
Are we taking a break?
Should maybe.
Do we wanna?
Would you guys like to take a break?
That's fine. And then
No, let's keep going. We're this far along, we can keep going.
Okay.
the hard part's done.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute, what about the
Okay, environmental land use, rezone.
No, I guess it is.
Whereas Jerome
We probably
M.
have
and
people
Mary
here
C.
waiting.
Madison, Osseo, Wisconsin, landowner petitioners have requested the rezone of a parcel of land in the town of Hale to create a residential lot. Whereas the rezone is on approximately 5 acres, more or less, and whereas a public hearing was held pursuant to Section 59.69 parentheses 5 of the Wisconsin statutes. And whereas the town of Hale supports the rezone request, and whereas the Environment and Land Use Committee moved to rezone this parcel from exclusive agriculture, EA, to primary agriculture, PA, and it appears that the zoning change request is appropriate under the circumstances. Now be it resolved that the county adopt the attached ordinance amending the zoning district boundaries as indicated. Introduced by Environment and Land Use Committee, George Brandt, Beth Killian, Kurt Skoyan, Carol Bowick, Kathy Zeglin, Kellen Nelson, Charles Wallach, Randy Severson.
It's been seconded. Any discussion? George, tell us about it.
Now they don't turn my mic on.
Who turned it on?
The Environment and Land Use Committee met and heard the request from the applicant, and there was support from the board. There was nobody who spoke against it. Well, actually, there was some concern, but the person thought it was in someplace else, so it's...
Okay. Other comments?
It says it on here.
We'll call the roll.
Okay. Joe Feltes.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
Did she say yes?
Yes.
Okay. John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Dan Schreiner.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson. Whoops. Kellen. Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyan.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Rick Nimitz.
Yes.
Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Rezone in the town of Hale?
He's right there. Do you want to vote on the rezone in the town of Hale?
Yes.
Okay. So is it yes or no? Okay. First I asked if you wanted to. Okay.
Okay, second resolution.
Okay.
Rezone rural residential commercial town of Ettrick.
Lincoln. Oh, did I skip one? Yes, I did. They stuck together. Whereas Marissa Howe, Ettrick, Wisconsin, landowner petitioner, has requested the rezone of a parcel of land in the town of Ettrick, approximately 3 acres more or less, to commercial C for storage units and residential 20, R20, on the remaining 8.2 acres more or less. And whereas the entire rezone is on approximately 11.2 acres more or less, and whereas a public hearing was held pursuant to Section 59.69, parentheses 5 of the Wisconsin statutes, and whereas the town of Ettrick supports the rezone request, and whereas the Environment and Land Use Committee moved to rezone this parcel from rural residential, RR, to commercial on approximately 3 acres, and residential 20, R20, on the remaining 8.2 acres more or less, and it appears the zoning change request is appropriate under the circumstances. Now be it resolved that the county adopt the attached ordinance amending the zoning district boundaries as indicated, introduced by Environment and Land Use Committee, George Brandt, Beth Killian, Kurt Skoyan, Carol Bowick, Kathy Zeglin, Kellen Nelson, Charles Wallach, and Randy Severson.
Motion made and seconded. Motion by Wallach, seconded by Nutter.
Mr. Chair, again, when we met at our June Environment and Land Use Committee, we held a public hearing in which we had an opportunity. Marissa, by the way, if anyone has any questions, Marissa is here to discuss her plans, but it was pretty straightforward. It's a 11-acre, almost slightly more than 11 acres. It's located in the thriving town of Beach Corners, and she's planning on putting up four-ish houses or dwellings. Yeah, that's about what's allowed under the zoning, and some storage units.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Any further comments?
It's a happening place.
Mr. Chair?
Call the roll.
Michelle?
Douglas Winters.
Mr. Chair?
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seixer.
Yes.
Joe Feltus.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
I think her mouth went yes.
Well,
You're mute.
our light show went off.
Well, I didn't do any.
Yes.
I see.
Says muted.
Oh,
Oh,
there's,
she keeps saying yes.
Yeah.
I can read her
okay,
lips
I can
from
read her
here.
lips too. Say yes, Michelle. Okay.
Yeah.
John Austin,
Yes, it says you.
Chuck Wallach?
Mike's on mute.
Tim Zeglin?
Yes.
No, it says unmute.
Yeah, but it's muted right now.
Okay. Dan Schreiner,
Yes.
Kellen Nelson,
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyan.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Rick Nemitz.
Oh.
17-0. Michelle, hit your mute button again, because I think you are.
When you, right now you're muted. When you click it, it'll turn green, and then you can talk. Now,
Now say something. Nope, there it went
You
again.
clicked it off again. You had it green.
3 different moms. They're so cute.
Can't hear anything.
Just when you need a guy who gets a state award, do you think he's anywhere to be found?
Now talk. Oh,
Nope.
you clicked.
I think something's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
No?
oh, even when it's, you're,
Huh.
say something now. Michelle.
How is your day going?
No, it's not working. That's okay. We'll just read your lips.
Can Debbie Foss talk?
Yeah. Okay.
Next time, yep, nod your
Okay.
head.
Third one. A transitional ag to commercial town of Lincoln, Camroth.
Whereas Scott G. and Virginette M. Gamreth, independents, Wisconsin landowner petitioners, have requested the rezone of a parcel of land in the town of Lincoln for storage units. And whereas the rezone is on approximately 1 acre more or less, and whereas a public hearing was held pursuant to Section 59.69, parentheses 5 of the Wisconsin statutes, and whereas the town of Lincoln supports the rezone request, and whereas the Environment and Land Use Committee moved to rezone this parcel from transitional agriculture, EA, to commercial, C, and it appears that the zoning change request is appropriate under the circumstances. Now be it resolved that the county adopt the attached ordinance amending the zoning district boundaries as indicated, introduced by Environment and Land Use Committee, George Brandt, Beth Killian, Kurt Skoyan, Carol Bowick, Kathy Zeglin, Kellen Nelson, Charles Wallach, Randy Severson.
Killian would make a motion to adopt, but I think in the transitional ag, it should be TA instead of EA.
Oh, I see that now.
Yes.
I'll fix
I
that.
didn't see that. Sorry, folks.
Do you know what? I actually called and talked to Verge about that, and I said, I'll mention it at the county board meeting.
Motion by Killian, was a second? Seconded by Brandt.
And
George,
again-
you want to
again,
explain it?
The public hearing was held earlier this month. The town has supported this. There was nobody who spoke against it. If you have any questions for either Scott or Verge, they've given me their cell numbers here. This is basically an attempt to make use of land that had been previously used in agriculture.
Okay. No other comments? Call the roll.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Sasha.
Yes.
Joe Feltus.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Thumbs up. I sorry say yes. All right, thumbs up.
John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Dan Schreiner.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyen.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Rick Nemitz. Douglas Winters.
Yes.
17-0.
Item 4, opposition and change in the wildlife damage abatement and claims program.
Whereas the Wildlife Damage Abatement and Claims Program, fully funded by a surcharge on hunting licenses, is a voluntary Department of Natural Resources program to assist producers with agricultural losses caused by deer, bear, geese, and cougars, as well as elk and sandhill cranes if hunting those animals is authorized. And whereas Trumpealeau County has participated in the program since its inception in 1983 and has administered the program through the Environment and Land Use Committee. Whereas the Wisconsin State Legislature is proposing making changes to the Wildlife Damage and Claims Program through Senate Bill 63 and Assembly Bill 49 by eliminating the administration of these programs from the Environment and Land Use Committee and changing the administration to these programs to the DNR instead. Whereas by eliminating any local authority when landowners have issues and appeals concerning harvest objectives or management of the program, they will no longer appear before the Environment and Land Use Committee, but would instead have to travel to Madison to appear before DNR officials who don't necessarily have local concerns in mind when rendering a decision. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors duly assembled this 21st day of June 2021 that the board opposes the changes to the Wildlife Damage and Claims Program through Senate Bill 63 and Assembly Bill 49, which eliminates any local county control of the program and instead gives all authority to the state government officials. And further, be it further resolved that the county clerk is directed to send a copy of this resolution to Governor Evers, the members of the state legislature, the Wisconsin Counties Association, and the other counties of the state of Wisconsin, state senators Jeff Smith and Kathy Bernier, and state assembly representatives Trig Prunchiski and Jesse James. Respectfully submitted, introduced by Environment and Land Use Committee, George Brandt, Kathy Zeglin, Beth Killian, Kellen Nelson, Kurt Skoyen, Chuck Wallach, Carol Bowick, Randy Severson.
Motion to adopt.
By
Second.
Tolson. Seconded by Nelson? Oh, okay.
Who did it?
Can you, can somebody explain why the DNR, why the state is doing this, what the rationale is?
Can I?
Go ahead, George.
I'll try to be as gentle as possible. This is a solution looking for a problem. This is a well-funded and well-run program. The state contracts with APHIS.
With who?
APHIS, I should know. It's a group run by the Fish and Wildlife Service, I think. And what they do is divide the state into regions. We have there's a representative that reports to us twice a year, spring and summer, or spring and fall rather, and the committee has the responsibility for approving abatement programs for producers who have had significant amount of damage that has been scientifically proven to be damaged by either bear or turkey or deer or cougar or, that's whatever. And then the program involves a number of ways of mitigating this. One is the giving of hunting permits, out-of-season hunting permits, and then if the landowner can give those permits to friends, family, anybody to shoot deer to stop eating the crops. The other thing, and this has been particularly important for Trempealeau County, is if you drive by the orchards, you'll notice they all have 6-foot fences on them. Those have all been paid for by the state as a way of mitigating deer damage to the orchards.
They eat apples off my tree.
Oh, party at Michelle's.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I know it says resolution drafted by Beth Killian, and that's because I'm the committee secretary, but I do want to give credit to Verge Gamroth and Kathy Ziegland for actually putting it all together and getting it in the proper format and forwarding it to the board.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I really didn't answer Supervisor Nutter's question. There was a question that a landowner who had some bear damage brought up. This is an owner of some cropland up north. In order to abate the bear, you have to catch it and either kill it or remove it. And in order to do that, you have to drive your equipment through the field, damaging crops, and that's not part of the reimbursement. So the landowner, instead of working with APHIS to come to a conclusion on how to reimburse for crop damage, went to their assembly person and asked them to change the law. It happens too often, and this, so in a sense, a problem or a solution looking for a problem.
Mr. Tolson.
I got a question for George. Is this just to do with crop damage, or is it also due to, like, say, wolf depredation of sheep and things like that?
Yes, it's that as well.
It is?
Yes. It's wildlife damage. It used to be called the deer damage program, and then it seemed like every year or so they'd be adding another species.
Thank you, George.
Okay.
One of the cool services that your Environment Land Use Committee Department of Land Management provides.
It doesn't make sense to drive to Madison unless they do everything via Zoom or video conference, but that's not good either, because it doesn't help to engage and figure out all the, because I've been to a couple of those hearings, and they really get down to the nitty-gritty of what's happened and how to resolve it.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Think we
you.
got enough comments? We'll call the roll.
It doesn't have to be. just
Oh, this one
voice.
doesn't? Oh, voice vote. All those in favor of the resolution for wildlife damage abatement?
Say yes.
Say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Hearing none. It's carried. I'm glad that we didn't have to call roll on that one. Executive Finance Committee, financial assistance for Trempealeau County Food Pantry, and I see you want to introduce?
I'm going to read it first.
Oh, you want to read them? Actually, okay.
Whereas Trempealeau County Food Pantry is an organization that operates out of the old Trempealeau County Health Care Center facility. And whereas since arriving at its current location, the pantry has assisted over 12,400 people with emergency food needs and has distributed over 413,281 pounds of food. Whereas Pantry is operated by numerous volunteers who have donated over 4,500 hours of volunteer time in the past 14 months. And whereas the need for the pantry's services has increased significantly over the past 3 years, and as a result, the pantry has added additional freezers to store more food for distribution. And whereas due to the added freezers, the costs to operate the pantry have increased, in particular the electrical used to operate the additional freezers. And whereas the Trempealeau County Health Care Center has been covering the electricity cost on behalf of the pantry, however, due to the to the increase in electricity costs, the healthcare center is unable to continue covering this expense, and the pantry will be responsible for covering this expense going forward. And whereas the pantry provides a valuable service to Trempealeau County, and taking on the electricity expense would be a significant burden and adversely impact the services that it provides. And whereas the pantry estimates that its monthly electric bill is approximately $600 per month, and is requesting that Trempealeau County cover the electrical expense for the remainder of the calendar year 2021, May to December, in order for the pantry to maintain its current level of services. Now be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors hereby appropriates $5,000 from the general fund to cover the electricity expenses of the pantry for the remainder of the calendar year 2021. Introduced by Executive Finance Committee, Chuck Wallach, Richard Seisha, George Brandt, John Austin, Tim Seglin.
Motion by Brandt, seconded by Altus.
David McCray.
By
is-
Seisha, seconded by Seisha.
David McCray is the director, is that the correct word, of the food pantry? Pardon? Chairman of the committee. He's here to answer any questions. I do want to point out that David's letter and chart and WCA memorandum that came out just before the Exec Finance Committee are in the packet. Hopefully you've read them. The chart is graphic. It's got a lot of information, but I think the line being the COVID, the dark vertical line being the beginning of the COVID shutdown is a good example of how it is. This pantry, which moved from a very undersized basement, church basement in Strum, to the healthcare center, the old healthcare center, just in time, has made a big difference in the lives of many, 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 many people. Again, if you have any questions of David, he's here.
Hey, David, do you have comments you would like to make?
I would like to point out the number of donors that we have received money from, totaling about between $7,000 and $8,000, coming from private individuals, local 4-H club, the Lincoln Pioneer Club, sacrificially gave, the Gunderson Lutheran Administrative Services, Tri-County Foundation, member of the Gunderson Health Care. We have a number of churches, the Fargonus Church, the Peace Lutheran, the women of the ECLA of the Peace Lutheran Church in Pigeon Falls, Whitehall Methodist Church, the Strum Emmanuel Lutheran Church. Hope I didn't forget any. The Blair Food Pantry has donated to us, the Blair Vet, Dr. Blaine Coxlane, Whitehall Lions Club, the Network for Good, the Arcadia Community Chest, Wisconsin Community Action Program Association, Riverland Energy, Compeer Financial, the FCCLA youth in our high school, Sense and Sensibility. The ADRC has been providing transportation originally for the recipients, but has become a proxy to pick up food for them and take it to them. That's been since the COVID has kicked in. Actually started just before that. Bush's Meat Market in Independence provided us with storage when we didn't have enough room for our freezers. Pigeon Falls Meat Service helped out last year when a donation for milk from the Ackley family raised over $3,000 to provide milk for the pantry, and the Pigeon Falls Meat Service provided their truck for keep it cool. American Legion in Whitehall as well. That's to name most of the donors, coming to $7,000 or $8,000 worth of donations. We are we have to use that, we leverage that money to purchase somewhere between 70 and 100,000 pounds of food or equivalent in that much money. So we have to be very skillful and considerate in how and when we make purchases.
Any questions to David? Yes, go ahead.
I don't really have a question, but I just want to say it's amazing the work that you have done to get the donations and your dedication to people who really are in desperate need right now. It's really kind of like, thank you.
You're welcome. And the responses to people that get food, some people cannot put it in words. They come with tears. It is moving. Some people, at the beginning of the COVID, one gentleman who had a broken back in 2 places came before. When we could go into the building, he would come and offer what he could do to help set up chairs, just out of thanks for the service that provided for him. When the COVID hit, he stayed home. He thought other people were more deserving than him.
Ms. Miller?
I know that there's a way that this is being done, but I need to ask it anyway. So how are we breaking out the part of the healthcare center building that the healthcare center is using for their facility, and then this? Is there a separate bill? Is there a way to measure what is from the food pantry and what is from the regular operations of the healthcare center's facility that they're using, that they're running over there?
I can kind of help with that.
Can't think of what's called now.
Go ahead, George.
Lori Glauner, if you don't think people are watching, you were at the Exec Finance Committee. We were discussing the resolution, and Lori called in to the Exec Finance Committee to say, please change the word annex to Old Healthcare Center facility. And they have, David has worked with the maintenance manager and the 2 guys you had mentioned. The letter kind of lines that out in terms of how it is that they've been able to track the increase in the price of electricity due to the increase in the freezers and the walk-in coolers and so forth. So they are watching that as well. I think the short answer is there's not a second meter, but they do know how much more they're using.
Okay, thank you.
Can Paul give us a little update on money that the healthcare center, that you get interest off, that
Oh, I don't have that.
you haven't got that in, but
Well,
the
I gave it
healthcare
all to
center,
Lori. Lori took it.
the county gets quite a bit of tax money, yes?
Right.
It's pretty close to, it's over $1 million.
I don't have I don't have any numbers on that, no, I don't. They get a monthly report, whoops, I don't have my, they get a monthly report from me of what their cash balance is. And what I did was I had Lori Halama, the treasurer, come up with what the interest rates were each month. And we could calculate that out, but I didn't. I gave all those numbers to Lori to calculate out. Lori Glaunard.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Ziegler? No?
Well, I just want to clarify Mr. Brandt's response to Supervisor Miller. We were at the same meeting, and the electric bill for, this is the old healthcare center, which is unoccupied. So the electric bill has remained predictably stable for up until the food pantry went in. So it's easy to see that here's this jump in electric bill because of the food pantry. There is no separate meter, but it's easy to break out the cost of keeping the freezers running. And the other point I wanted to make, I also made it at Exec Finance, is that even though this is an ask, this is a request that we will probably receive every year, I did point out that if you added all the volunteer hours and all the donations that Mr. McRae has just listed, plus all those volunteer hours, other people in the community, other people in the county have already contributed a great deal more in time and services than the $5,000 or whatever it is here. So really, the county here is just picking up a really appropriate part of the expense.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing or hearing none, call the roll.
Rick Nimitz. Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
Joe Feltes.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes. Okay. John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Dan Schreiner.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyen.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
17-0.
Okay, Exec Finance
Thank
Committee,
you.
Property Committee, transfer from the general fund to IT technology for security consulting.
Well, you skipped another one.
Oh, I skipped one. Sorry about that.
You don't want to do the hard stuff.
No, I don't want to do the hard stuff.
Whereas the land
Revision of-
records.
Revision of Trumbull County ordinance regarding oversight in the land records department.
Whereas the Land Records Department staff requested to detach from the Department of Land Management and become a standalone department. Whereas both the Environment and Land Use Committee and the Executive Finance Committee agreed that the Executive Finance Committee would take on the responsibility of overseeing the Land Records Department upon its detachment from the Department of Land Management. And whereas Trumbull County Ordinance 2.04, parentheses 9, parentheses A, sets forth the duties and the responsibilities of the Executive Finance Committee. Whereas this ordinance needs to be modified to add the oversight of the Land Records Department. Now be it resolved that the Trumbull County Board of Supervisors adopts the attached changes to Trumbull County Ordinance 2.049A to add the oversight of Land Records Department to the Executive Finance Committee. And by the way, you never gave me what that attached was.
I'll email it to you. You never had it? No? Okay, I'll send it to you.
I'll second.
That was a motion by Wallach, seconded by Nutter. Any discussion?
Just briefly, this was a matter that came up just before COVID last January, and the Environment and Land Use Committee had asked to decided to take 6 months to make a decision, and this comes to 6 months, so it's pretty clear it's going to work out. So,
okay.
We don't have to say anything about that. It was never in Land Management.
Any questions at all? Number, this can just go by voice vote?
No,
right?
it's an ordinance.
It's an ordinance.
We got
John.
Dan,
All right. really
Dan
good.
Schreiner.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyen.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Rick Nimitz. Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
Joe Feltes.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
What was that?
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
17-0.
Okay, now D.
Now what can do that?
Transfer from the general fund to IT technology security consulting.
Whereas Trumbull County information technology staff are not always able to complete every critical technology security task and problem mitigation needed to protect the county and its information. And whereas in 2020, a complete security evaluation was conducted that analyzed and identified existing security measures and made recommendations for further action using multiple industry standard metrics. And whereas the information technology staff tasked with implementing the security components identified in the 2020 security evaluation lack many of the required skill sets, have limited access to training, and do not have the necessary time to correct the identified concerns. And whereas the security evaluation results were not available prior to the completion of the 2021 budget. And whereas the estimated cost to secure a third-party consulting firm for the enhancement of the county's security status by correcting 6 enhanced security controls is $27,000. And whereas the purchase of these services will greatly assist in allowing existing in-house staff to mitigate security issues, protect county data, and prevent a loss of critical services. Now be it resolved that the Trumbull County Board of Supervisors approves the transfer of $27,000 from the general fund to account 101.51450.210 for the purpose of securing a third-party consulting firm to assist in improving the county's technology security situation. Introduced by Property Committee, Chuck Wallach, Dan Schreiner, Randy Tollefson, Richard Seisha. In Executive Finance Committee, Chuck Wallach, George Brandt, Tim Zieglen, Richard Seisha, John Austin.
Sign it now.
No, it's okay. I got it. That was Schreiner.
Schreiner, Nutter.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Discussion?
One thing that Tim did bring up when he brought it to our committees was, especially with the computers now going out to one of the things Tim brought up was that now with computers going out to board members, security is going to be much more of a problem because, boy, somebody hacks into one of our computers at home, all of a sudden they have access to lots of county information and that. So he did say, but he did say, and this is a problem that's going to continue forever. Every time there's a change in technology, we're going to have some problems with security. And we don't want our security compromised at all. And he said it was much cheaper for this company to come in and do it than him trying to have his department. They're running short on people already, and these people could do it much more efficiently.
It seems like a very reasonable cost, too.
Yes, it does, yep.
I mean, compared to what could happen.
Yes. All it takes is one leak,
Right.
and we could spend a lot more money
Yeah,
than
it
this.
seems really reasonable to me.
Okay.
And just as another note, that security evaluation that was done at the end of last year was a grant that I got from the Elections Commission. So that was kind of good to paid for the whole thing that way.
Seeing no other, we'll call the roll.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
Joe Feltus.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Dan Schreiner.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyen.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Rick Nimitz. Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
17-0.
Audit Committee, membership claims.
Whereas the Audit Committee has audited the following claims and recommend that they be allowed as follows. John Austin, $752.64. George Brandt, $257.12. Joe Feltus, 0. Michelle Haynes, 0. Ron Johnson, $71.28. Beth Killian, $212.16. Sally Miller, $50. Kellen Nelson, $63.44. Rick Nimitz, $169.44. Jeannie Nutter, $262.72. Richard Seisha, $58.24. Dan Schreiner, $250. Kurt Skoyen, $444.64. Randy Tollefson, $71.28. Chuck Wallach, $273.52. Douglas Winters, $436.96. Tim Zeglin, 0. Total per diem, $2,900. Expenses, $573.44. Grand total, $3,473.44. Now be it resolved that the claims be allowed as shown, introduced by Audit Committee, John Austin, Kellen Nelson, Jeannie Nutter.
Okay.
Doug?
The motion by Mr. Winters.
Second.
Seconded by Doc Seisha.
It was Joe.
Oh, Joe Feltus. Seconded by Joe Feltus. No discussion?
Yeah, why is
Call the
you
roll.
so, you're so big? No. Okay. Doug Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha?
Yes.
Joe Feltus?
Yes.
George Brandt?
Yes.
Beth Killian?
Yes.
Randy Tollefson?
Yes.
Michelle Haynes?
Yes.
John Austin?
Yes.
Chuck Wallach?
Yes.
Tim Zeglin?
Yes.
Dan Schreiner?
Yes.
Kellen Nelson?
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter?
Yes.
Kurt Skoyen?
Yes.
Ron Johnson?
Yes.
Rick Nimitz? 17-0.
Hey, item 8A, Executive Finance Committee Budget and General Fund updates.
They were all sent to you.
You have in your possession?
If you have any questions, let me know. It's our general fund, and also the added surprise for sales tax, if you'll notice. That was a
nice surprise.
that was a big surprise compared to the last year or even the year before.
Oh.
That month, yes.
COVID-19 Committee update. Do you have something, Sally?
Yeah, I have a few things. One, obviously, we're starting to return back to pre-COVID protocols. Two, this information I'm giving you is that was presented at the most recent COVID committee meeting, which was, the 9th? Yeah, like the 9th or something. There's been a lot of meetings, but we had been doing zero. We'd had zero for a few days, and then suddenly we started having a positive a day. Then we did have a death, but we're still like in the yellow. The National Guard is no longer being requested for COVID testing due to the low uptake and the low response. They do continue to have a contract nurse available who will do COVID testing by appointment. There's no charge, and you can be reached by she can be reached by calling the health department. So far, countywide, as we're coming down to where we don't need as much PPE, part of the goal of the COVID committee was to make sure that should we experience an uptick or if something else were to come, that we would have on hand a sufficient supply of PPEs and sanitation as just a standard policy going forward. That was something that Jeremy Matheny had worked on as part of his role on the committee. And so he's reported back that we have more than sufficient to keep everybody in masks, or we suddenly have an outbreak of something, and storage. So we've definitely got plenty of equipment should something come up again. We won't be caught like we were this time last year. They're having COVID immunization clinics scheduled on Wednesdays in June. They're trying to get some moved around to allow for people coming a little bit earlier, a little bit later after work. There's also other COVID sites. Just a reminder to everybody that's listening that your COVID vaccination is free. So don't be alarmed and think you can't pay for it. It is free. They might ask you for insurance information, but it's free. It is being paid for by the federal government. And so there was some concerns that there was a cost. They were getting some calls, and so she asked me to communicate that as well. We are continuing to work with the health departments, continuing to work with businesses and schools, and working on basically helping people ease into the next stage of reopening. And then we've also been looking at some other information, obviously the COVID relief funding and then the Rescue Act and all these additional finances. As you may recall, a year ago, I had come to this board and asked us to engage the Integrity Group to assist us in navigating all the financials that were, because it was so much and everything. And so we did have Deb Sukla, Human Services Director, did step forward and said that she would assist us in gathering and navigating that, and then she and Paul worked together on that. She went to all of the various department heads and worked with them in understanding what it was we needed and so on. She does actually, she's kind of the one that's been helping explain to us some of the funding that's available and some of the protocols. She's been meeting with the Integrity Group on Zoom meetings just about every Monday, but her and Paul and John have been doing that. And so definitely taking the lead on it. So I'm going to ask her to go ahead and talk to us more about some of the financing and the funding and things that's going on. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words, Sally. It is an honor for me to be able to help out the county figure some of this out. Paul has been working with the Integrity Group now that we've figured out what expenses we can have for the FEMA portion of it. He's working, you submitted a little over $500,000 worth of bills.
600.
600. Oh, very little letters, I can't read. Paul and Integrity Group and myself are working to finalize the pieces. It is kind of amazing how many questions FEMA asks, like if there's construction, if there's any remodeling, we have to tell them the latitude and longitude of that location. Like, some of the details a little overwhelming, but we can figure it out. It's worth it for the money we're
We
going to get
found
it.
out everything they've asked so far.
Yeah, and so that's been, yeah.
That's where we got it.
And they had kind of planned that. They had planned that, and then we kind of found a way to say that was related to COVID. So that's awesome. We're going to get that funded. Paul mentioned earlier he got almost $2.9 million will be deposited in our account. Just because the money's there doesn't mean that it's, we have to account for how we're going to spend that. So I know Paul is working to figure out how much, comparing like 18 to 19 and 19 to 20 in terms of the years, on what the revenues were, what's the difference, and trying to track that out the next 4 years. If we can capture most of that $5.8 or $5.7 million that way, we will. It would then go in the general fund, and then at that point, the way it can be spent will really be based on what this board sets as a priority, versus trying to figure out what do we want to spend it on and how can we interpret the law to make it be that. So we're hoping we get most of it, if not all of it, funded that way. Integrity has asked if they can help us with that, but I think we've got that pinned down. One of the things we will want to talk with Integrity on is a little bit what they shared with you last month, was that there's funding in the American Rescue Plan Act for housing and utilities and some of those kind of benefits. And so we're going to be working with them on how can we draw that down. They would be able to, remember George asked a question last time about who has the capacity to track all this, and they can do that for us. And so that would be a nice resource for us to be able to get for the people in our community who are in great need. That would be a tremendous resource. We have in our department received some additional funding that is through the American Rescue Plan Act, through the state of Wisconsin for the Adult Protection Program. We've also received COVID funding in our department in the ADRC to help seniors that may have difficulty signing up for the COVID vaccine, that we could help them with that. Sometimes you have to go online to sign up for that, and not everybody has that capacity, either have the equipment or the knowledge of how to use the machine. So we can do that. We've got a little grant to do that. And we're also going to be getting some additional funding. I don't know the amount right now for our home delivered program, home delivered meals program, through this with a funding for through the American Rescue Plan Act. But that will be through the state, so it's not something that we would be claiming here. So, and I know the health department and the sheriff's office are going to be looking at some options, and I think there's some other departments in the county that are looking at it too. Again, the Integrity Group has been really helpful to us, and they're able to find funding through FEMA to pay for it, so it really isn't costing us and taking the money from us. So that's been a real nice thing. Did I miss anything, Paul?
Nope.
I talked fast, sorry.
Looks good.
Thanks. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Deb. I had one question. Do we have an idea what percentage of the Trumpealeau County population has been vaccinated?
I do know that.
All right.
Thank you. I do have that, and I actually know off the top of my head. So at the last Board of Health meeting, which was last week, they reported that over 54%, does that sound right? At least 50% for sure, but at 54% of Trempealeau County population has received at least the first shot of a vaccination if they're doing the vaccination that requires 2 shots, otherwise a single shot if that's the version they're using. We have over 80% of the almost 90%, yeah, close to 90% of the senior population has been vaccinated. I believe that if we aren't leading the state, we're pretty darn close.
Whoa.
And so that, I think we definitely need to credit our health department, our ADRC, and all of the folks that work direct service providers to our aging and population and those individuals at risk who definitely can get overwhelmed. When I had to sign up for the vaccination, I was just really kind of like, this is doing that and that's doing that. And it felt a little overwhelming for me at one point. So I was really grateful to find out that we have assistance coming from government employees to help people with that. So yeah, that's where we're at. We're actually doing pretty good. And I believe now that kids, like 18 to 12 now, I think, and don't quote me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, because I did not take note on that, but we're now starting to see that population be vaccinated as well, and they'll start getting that data probably to report to the COVID committee at our next meeting, but for sure for the health department meeting at next month.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question for
Yes.
Sally. We used to get notices from Kaylee pretty regularly. At your meeting, did they indicate whether the new variant is in Trempealeau County?
The last time that I believe there is,
Okay.
that it's been tracked. I think I picked that information up off a state website. But yeah, I believe that they have notified that, yeah.
But actually, the current vaccine is working for that too, so. Cool. Thank you. Highway Committee Annual Report. I see Baker Tilly's got theirs done. I see nobody from the Highway Department except.
This was just for information.
Yeah, that's what it's basically
If you
for
have
information.
questions, we'd have Al come next month.
And it will be reported on, because our current auditors for the county actually used this.
They did this.
Baker Tilly?
Yeah.
Did this, are they both the same?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we used to have
They
separate.
they do highway before they come to us.
Oh, okay. So you'll get a report on when they do their final report.
Scott,
Yes.
were you going to say anything about number 7, or did you? I didn't catch it if you did.
Oh, that was, yeah, we did that. We did that.
Before the resolution.
Oh, you did? I didn't hear anything on it.
Well, you voted. You voted on
You
it.
voted on it.
On number 7?
Yes. That
We
was the
did?
first thing we did.
I thought everything was discussed, I thought it had to do with the agenda change.
That was the agenda change, and then we moved them up to that spot and vote. Yeah. That was, Sally forgot,
And he read his voicemail from Kathy,
right.
saying she would do her name.
And then we voted, on it, yeah.
George, I think you made the motion?
Acknowledge Tony sitting back there.
Okay. And the reason we did that is so you could go home. I didn't expect you to stay here all night.
George made the
But-
motion, or Ron seconded it.
You were wanting to get up and give a speech.
Oh, I wasn't here for that part.
Oh, you were for.
The other stuff, yep. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, number 9, correspondence. Did you have any?
I don't have any.
Only
I
correspondence?
think the
had-
only correspondence I would have had would have been the email I got today about the 2.8 million that we got, you know, but.
Okay. Instruct the clerk to pay mileage and per diem. No. Moved by Feltus, seconded by Brandt. Voice vote again.
No. Ron Johnson? Rick Nimitz? Douglas Winters?
Yes.
Sally Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sasha? Joe Feltus? George Brandt? Beth Killian?
Yes.
Randy Tollefson?
Yes.
Michelle Haynes?
Yes.
John Austin?
Yeah.
Chuck Wallach? Tim Zeglin? Dan Schreiner?
Yes.
Kellen Nelson?
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter?
Yes.
Kurt Skoyen?
Yes, and I know what you voted.
17-0. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Then just, if anybody is going to the WCA conference,
Oh, yeah.
get your registrations in. I got Doug's right now. I've gotten about 4 of them, 5 of them. Yeah, I got,
It's in lacrosse?
it's in La Crosse,
And when?
September 26th to 28th. So, September 26th to the 28th.
Right when we're doing budget.
Yeah,
It should be
usually
a
is.
little bit, it's in that,
It's
in
usu-
that leeway when they're done with getting the budgets put together and
It's
before I
usually-
present it to you guys.
It's usually somewhere we take that break in there and come back and do budget again.
In past years, it usually was the week before, because then we always had to move our county board to that last week in September. Now they went to the last, so we can have our regular meeting in September on the 3rd Monday night.
Okay, the upcoming meeting, you can see that, it's July 19th, 7 PM.
6, yep, for the training that's.
Yeah, and that'll also be at 6 o'clock.
Oh, good thing, I put the wrong time down below there.
Right.
Rick, you should have caught that.
Anyway.
didn't.
Item 11, my favorite part of the meeting, we can adjourn at
What is it?
8:38, 9.